Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, good evening and welcome. It is December 15th, 2020. This is a special scheduled meeting of the East Long Meadow School Committee. I will call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts, March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. We do have the entire committee in attendance this evening, and we will move forward with our first order of business, which we have no minutes for approval this evening. So we will go right to an opportunity for visitors
Give me
to address the
give me a
meeting.
minute.
Yep, you got it, Mr. Mackey.
All
We
right.
should play some elevator music or something in the back.
Well, it just so the whole
No
issue
rush.
last time was Facebook added an invisible extra step.
I'm glad you've solved the issue for us, Mr. Mackey. Thank you.
Me too.
Right. Okay.
So, we're ready. We're good to go.
Okay, thank you, sir. So just so everyone's aware, we have already reached our limit on our Zoom call, so we're maxed out on that. If folks are contacting you and you happen to be on this call, you can let them know that we're also streaming live on Facebook, and Mr. Mackey has set that up for us this evening. But unfortunately, we are capped at 100 in terms of attendance this evening. Okay, with that, we will move forward with the meeting, and we have an opportunity, as we do always, to have visitors to address the committee. This is not an opportunity to ask questions. I do anticipate a few folks this evening, so if you could keep your comments as brief as possible, and perhaps if you've heard someone made some of the comments you were looking to make, if you could not be overly repetitive, that would be helpful this evening. So with that, if you are interested in speaking this evening, now would be your time from the public. And you can raise your hand. You can hit the raise your hand button, and we will take participants one at a time, please.
You want to? So I'm going to go from the top. You want to just confirm the names so I pull them in, make sure I've got the right person.
You're going to pull them in, and then I'll read the name?
No, read the name now. You have Mr. Hayes or Miss Hayes? Hayes Murray Hayes?
Yep, okay. Sure.
Hello.
Hello, are you there?
Yeah, this is Hayes Murray.
Hayes Murray, nice to meet you. What can we do for you this evening, sir?
So thanks for some time. Just a comment about the potential return to in-school learning. So my wife and I are the parents of 3 children, 2 who attend Mountain View and 1 who's in kindergarten at Meadowbrook. We've been really thankful to live in a town with the resources and the capacity for remote learning. And under the circumstances, like many of you, we've done our best to get the most out of it. We're fortunate that our jobs allow us to work from home, and we have worked hard to ensure that our kids are safe, but also aren't stifled socially, not only by being together in large household, but through church, certain sports activities, as well as a thriving network of neighborhood friends. However, I'm fully aware this is not the typical scenario for many children in East Long Meadow, and with daylight savings and the weather stripping our kids of some of the safe and essential social interactions they need from playing outside, I fear that they'll suffer not just academically, but socially, especially the younger groups. And I really believe that our town and the teachers and administrators have made remote learning the best possible experience they can for our children, but it's time to go back to school. Our children desperately need the social interaction with their friends and their classmates, especially through the cold winter months. And a kindergartner being on an iPad for 6 hours a day, it just isn't right. They also need the structure and superior educational experience that comes with in-class teaching. For parents and residents that prefer remote learning, for health or educational reasons, I'm so grateful they'll be given the freedom to choose to continue the practice that has worked for them, their families, and their children. With that same freedom, and choice needs to be granted to the parents and children for whom remote learning is not a viable long-term option. I have the utmost respect for this committee and the work that our teachers and administrators have done through this pandemic, day in and day out. And I'm confident that our administrators can adequately and safely plan a return to in-classroom learning in January. And I'm assured that our wonderful teachers have the capacity and the aptitude to successfully manage in-person and remote learning simultaneously. So thank you for hearing me out, the committee, and allowing me to speak.
Okay, Hayes, thank you for your time and your words this evening. Mr. Mackey, I have Carrie Skillen.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes. Hi, Carrie. How are you this evening?
Great. How are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Excellent. So just wanted to reiterate, we appreciate all the hard work that the committee has put forth, especially in the last 6 to 8 weeks, working very diligently and quickly to put various plans in place that would work for the community as a whole. And I just wanted to reiterate that with the American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Fauci, who's come forth more recently with a strong statement, the kids belong in school, Dr. Clark, Dr. Nordstrom, another local pediatrician. We also have a local mental health clinician who has reported to us that her referrals since September have increased by 385% of East Longmeadow Town community students in the K through 12 system. So there is a real mental health crisis that really needs to be considered in your vote. Lastly, I just wanted to indicate that no matter what the vote is tonight, if at any time that the committee or Mr. Smith needs to consider or pivot because we need to be remote, that there is a strong consideration and a plan to reevaluate on a weekly basis, not a monthly basis, not a 2-month basis, not vacations, but a weekly basis about the efficacy of all of us returning to school that need to return to school as quickly as possible. Thanks everyone for your time, and we look forward to your vote.
Thank you, Carrie, for your words this evening. Don, I have Laura Peteros, please.
On our way.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Chris.
Hi, sorry about that. Again, I'm on Laura's computer. Thank you for having me.
No worries.
I appreciate you giving me the moment to talk, and I'll try not to reiterate some of the other things the others did, as Greg stated. We know we have the governor behind us, and he'd like us to go back to school. We know we've got the pediatricians behind us as well. And the mental health issue, I think, can't be touched on too much. And I like to try to think about this in the perspective of the student. And taking, say, just for instance, the two extremes. You've got kindergartners who that first day of school, the excitement, the new teacher, the new friends, bringing home that first project to mom, how much pride they feel. And then take the other extreme. You've got seniors. They've made it finally to their senior year. No one is above them. They're the kings and the queens of the school. Talking about who's going to what college and maybe joining the family business or going off to the service, whatever it may be, prom, Friday night football games, which we've already lost. Our lives as adults are pretty much the same from year to year, with maybe the exception of this one. But for them, these are years they can never get back. And I think it's just time that we give it back to them and let them have what they can out of the rest of this year. So I hope you'll take into consideration what the kids really feel. And again, the fact that they can't get it back if we don't give it to them now. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, thank you for your words and your time this evening. Mr. Mackey, Ami Singh, please.
Yeah, sorry. Right, so the people who were talking before, I can't, there's more people on the screen. Down here.
Hi, this is Amy Singh. Can you hear me?
Yes, good to see you, Amy. How are you?
Hi. My name is Amy Singh. I'm an East Long Meadow resident and a teacher at Birchland Park. I would like my fellow residents to get a sense of how, as a teacher, I am feeling. We've talked to our representatives and written letters to the school committee, but so far our voices have not been heard in this forum. So before I start, I want to make it clear that this is not a negation of what the school committee has done, and that I feel great sympathy with the plight of parents and students, and that I will continue to teach in the classroom as I have since the start of the school year, because I'm committed to providing the best, most equitable education to all my students. And it is this commitment to my students and their needs that brings me here to plead for a delay in sending our students, teachers, administrators, and support staff back into the fray. So first, I worry about equity of instruction. I do have classes where I have a student in my classroom and I have to teach with a mask. And there is a marked difference in understanding of the students who are at home when I am teaching with a mask. So especially when we're taking notes or doing labs. So my question is this equitable? And the date of our return cuts short the second term for Birchland Park and the high school. So the kids in the second term will not get the full 10 weeks of their program. Again, is that equitable? I'm a science teacher, so I do labs, and that's the core of the lab-based science curriculum, especially now. Right now, my students are doing labs at home without any worries about their health because they have individual access to the materials they're using. We're not rushed for time because the students can put the materials away and come back to them safely. With students in the classroom, how am I going to sanitize the materials in the desks after each group of students? If labs must be done over a series of days, how do I keep it safe for each group of students? And what do the students at home do when we have labs? Right now, everybody has access to hands-on activities at the same time with no logistical worries. And the timing of the return. Many of us have students coming back from college or have planned to see family for Christmas. The date of our possible return to school barely gives us time to quarantine after possible holiday exposures. Teachers with a return to the building slated for January 4th definitely don't have time to quarantine. So we really have to make choices about what we can and can't do. We also are still seeing cases rise after Thanksgiving, which was almost 4 weeks ago. Can I ask you to do as much as I have to limit your holiday plans in order to bring students safely back to school? I worry about whether or not our families can make the lifestyle resets that need to be made to keep all kids safe in school. Sending our kids to school in the middle of winter will require dedication from us adults. We need to be vigilant in our efforts to control community spread so that we guarantee that children and adults do not bring any virus into the classroom. And remember that the population density in our schools will be higher for a longer, sustained period of time than the normal office setting or indoor dining at a restaurant or shopping at Costco. This is going to mean limiting family get-togethers, sports, and our own social activities in order to make sure that everyone in the school is safe. I'll be trusting and depending on you to do your part outside of school to keep me and my students safe in school. So those are just some of the things that I worry about as I get ready to bring students into my classroom in less than 4 weeks. So I urge this body to think about the timing of our return to school. Can you, as parents and fellow community members, guarantee that the students coming into the classroom on January 19th will be able to do so safely? Are the protocols we have in place for hybrid instruction equitable, both for students in the building and to students who must remain remote? I want to see my students in person as much as you would like to see them return to school. But it's mid-January, in the middle of the flu and cold season, the safest time to bring them in? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Amy, for your time and your words this evening. Thank you so much. Mr. Mackey, I have Van Johnson, please.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure what the delay was there. I don't have anything prepared. I just did want to encourage the committee just to follow the science. I understand there's lots of pressure on both sides with competing. Well, I won't say competing interests, but certainly I think there are strong feelings on both sides of this issue. But I would just encourage the committee to follow the science and make its best decision. I think I speak for probably a large majority of the committee when I say I think there's a lot of trust. A lot of trust is placed in the committee. We know that you'll do your best to make a solid decision for students and families. But I would just encourage them not to be necessarily by whether it's impassioned speeches or the loudest voices, but just to follow the science and to make your best decision. We appreciate your work and appreciate your efforts, and thank you for the time to speak.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, thank you for your time and your words this evening. Is Barbara Donahue, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Barbara Donahue. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Barbara. Go ahead, please.
How are you? I just briefly, I am the mother of 4 children, 3 who have gone through East Long Meadow, 2 that are actively there. And I'm also a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner since 2002. Predominantly working in the college arena and at the Hampden County Sheriff's Department. My goal simply tonight is to get out some facts that I think are often overlooked, as I know and understand them in the from my medical standpoint. I've spent many hours looking up information about COVID-19. I actually go in to the front lines and work in the incarcerated population. A couple facts that I think we all know that are completely undisputed is clearly COVID-19 is contagious. And we know that when we look at the positivity rate. However, I think we are not really educated enough, or we hear enough about the fact that kids, adults, the recovery rate is 97.5 to 99.5. And I don't know about you, but I watch the news. I hear a lot about the spikes. I hear a lot about the transmission rate, and honestly, I barely hear anything ever spoken about the recovery rate, and it's exceptionally high. And I think we need to sort of look at that as we look at the total picture of kids getting back to school. One thing that's not disputed is that you are symptomatic, then you're more contagious. And reports out there from the Yale study say that 40% of people don't even realize that they have COVID-19. And so there's a big group of people out there that
She's on
perhaps
call, buddy.
never have been tested because they're unaware. But again, I can't reinforce enough that, you know, what I see out on the ground is, you know, you got a very high recovery rate in spite of COVID-19. And just briefly, you know, we never really hear about recovery rates. We don't hear about treatments. Out on the front line, you know, I call it sort of the COVID-19 cocktail,
PJ,
where you're going to get
get up and go tell your
antibiotics
mother.
and corticosteroids. You're going to possibly get remdesivir. And again, you're going to be fine, you know. So, you know, in the end, in conclusion, you know, again, the school-age child recovery rate is 99.98. If you're above 50 with an underlying condition, the rate of recovery is anywhere between 97.5 and 99.5. Those are great numbers, and we don't hear about those numbers at all. And so I just think, I heard someone say about following the science. That's part of the science. Not only the positivity rate, but also the recovery rate. And I just ask that everybody keep in mind, you know, when it comes to children and remote learning, we are clearly seeing negative ramifications of kids at home learning. I know that teachers are working very, very hard to try to make this work. And I appreciate that. But this is not a long-term solution to COVID if we indeed want to follow the science. So I just ask that everybody, you know, I did a lot of research. The COVID statistics are out there, and we need to consider properly allocating for education. I thank you for your time. And again, I really appreciate all you are doing to help the kids. I just think it's time that we get back to education, because there are a lot of statistics out there of kids having serious mental health issues, depression, and we shouldn't overlook that. It's sort of the total
Okay.
package. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. I really appreciate your time this evening. Mr. Mackey, our former speaker is still on as a panelist.
So I'm going to do something here, Greg. I'm
Yep.
going to actually have to transfer and make you host of the meeting. So I can explain the issue. There's a setting that limits the number of windows that I can see as the host
Okay.
that I'm able to change. But in order for the change to take effect, I have to basically stop the meeting.
Okay.
So I can only see, as I said, you and the principals, panelists in the meeting. So I have no way to change those settings, because those settings to mute people and remove them and send them back to attendees are in their boxes.
So in order for a panelist who comes in to leave, they have to leave themselves? Is that
They
what you're
have to
saying?
leave themselves. So if each of those people who has done speaking can go into the upper right of their box, if they see their own box, and do that, that may be the short-term solution. I apologize. We've got 2 meetings going. We had a council meeting in the other room, and I'm doing this on a different computer, and the settings were different, which I didn't know anything about.
Okay. Mr. Mackey, could you just explain for those that are still in the meeting as panelists, how they would exit and still remain as attendees?
They hover
but
over their particular window.
Yep.
go to the upper right, they'll see a blue menu, little blue box. And it should give them the option to
Return as an attendee.
return to attendee.
Okay. So I would just ask anyone who spoke from the public and is now finished speaking, if you could do that so that our screen can clear out a little bit. And also we are getting some feedback from those of you who are still on.
I can also do that from the attendee window, but there's 100 names. And once they're out, they're random in that list. So I've been
Okay.
scrolling up and down trying to find them, but I can't. So
What do you need me to do, Mr. Mackey?
I think you've done it. Has anybody left?
Yes.
All right. So I
Tammy's
guess
still there
the next
and Mr.
speaker,
Johnson.
that will be the instruction. When they're done, they have to remove themselves.
Okay. So I still see Amy Singh and Van Johnson. If they could change themselves back to an attendee, please.
And if I could find them in the list, I can do it, but I've gone up and down a few times.
Yeah. Plus Laura Peteros is still in there too.
I don't know how to do that. How do I do that?
Hi, I also don't have that option on my window.
All right,
to
so I'm going to
return
ask
it
you guys then, would you then raise your hands again?
If you're
You've
still on the
already spoken.
call and you've come in and you already spoke, if you could raise your hand again so that you'll go to the top of the list, and then Mr. Mackey, our LCAT director, can address it. I apologize, everyone, for the technical delay. We are
Me
certainly
too.
doing our best.
Again, it's really my
Nope.
doing here. So Hayes.
We appreciate your time and effort, Mr. Mackey. No worries here. We're all in this together.
All right, so but Hayes, you were off. Mr. Murray was off.
I think you're all set now. Looks good.
Oh. No,
Van Johnson still. Well, Amy's still in too.
they're not, their hands are not raised. I don't even see them here.
Amy, could you raise your hand, please? And Van Johnson, if you could raise your hand again, please.
It is raised.
That's
It's
interesting.
because they're panelists, so they're
Alright.
showing up on the panelist side and not on the
Wow.
attendee
Boy,
side.
Sarah,
So they're,
thank you so much.
you're welcome. Their hands are raised on the
Yeah,
panelist side of things.
I don't know why
That's okay.
no, that's my,
No big deal. There's a lot going on.
change role to attendee. All right. Boy,
Perfect.
that was such a simple thing.
Thank you, Sarah.
Anybody
And then,
else?
Mr. Mackey, if you could bring in John Harding next, please.
Yep. Sorry, Greg.
No, thank you so much for all your efforts. We really do appreciate it.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Smith. Good evening, Mr. Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks a lot for letting me speak. I had already essentially sent you my notes, but what I'd like to add to what's been said tonight, and I think my daughter, so I've got 3 kids in the school system. I've got a kindergartner, I've got a middle school daughter, and I've got a son who in a couple weeks is going to be at the high school. And he's going to be back at the high school. He's presently at Pope, but he's going to be back at the high school because my wife and I strongly feel that we have the best school system probably in probably, and it's not an exaggeration, but the world. You know, Massachusetts, hands down, has the best school systems, public school systems. And my wife and I are incredibly impressed with all of the teachers and the school system here. And I first should have started off with thanking you all for the hard work that you put in, because it's a thankless job, especially at this time. But we're very impressed with the school system. what I'd like to say too, in response to Ms. Singh, who I believe teaches my daughter, I get her emails, is we got to keep in mind that our kids aren't competing just against, for grades and trying to learn, our kids are competing against kids all over the world because they're going to be trying to get into colleges in a couple of years. And without in-person contact, so much is lost over this forum. So, hey, Anna, so much is lost over this remote learning forum. And I understand the challenges that exist. Kids, students, young adults will have to follow proper protocols to be successful in learning in person. My son goes to school at Pope every day right now, wears a mask. And these kids follow those protocols. Our population in East Longmeadow is incredibly impressive population. These kids can follow these protocols. Some of my notes that I have are that, I've been coaching sports for over 34 years. I've coached baseball this summer. The point is that I've had my son's baseball team over our house. They beat Longmeadow, they beat Wilbraham in the fall championship. It was really cool. But we have these kids over, these 14, 15-year-old kids. And, my wife and I talk to them. And the fact of the matter is they're bored right now doing the remote learning. They're not being challenged. I talk to my daughter, and I hate to say it, but it's kind of easy right now for the kids. A lot of the kids, they're not getting homework. They're really not being challenged. And we got to keep in mind, they're going to be competing against kids from all over the world to get into our colleges and universities in a few years. And if done properly, like all the other communities have done, not all the other communities, but a lot of communities have done it. We can do it too in East Longmeadow. We can be cautious, we can be safe, and the same goes with the sports. I go to work every day. Miss Donahue, Barbara probably has a few of my clients over at the jail, but I go to work every day. We wash the hands, we wear the mask, and we follow the protocols. There's the day I was going out to the courthouse and I said, yeah, I could do this over my computer, but the fact is I lose so much when I'm not face to face with somebody else. You lose so much. And this education piece, I tell my kids all the time, I say, hey, look, regardless of what class you're in, you pay attention. You might not think you need to know about social studies. You might not think you need to know about God knows what. But, I had the experience later in life when I went to take the Foreign Service exam. They can test you on anything, and this exam popped up and I was like, oh gosh, I wish I had, paid attention in the 7th grade. So with that, all I can stress is that I've talked to a lot of kids and they're struggling. A lot of kids are struggling with this remote learning. Sadly, they're struggling. They're bored. They're saying it's too easy. And I hate to bring it up, but it's very easy to cheat with remote learning. For us to think that these kids don't have cell phones and they can be off camera just looking up answers, I'm not going to say where that comes from. That comes from my daughter. Not that she's cheating, but it is easy to cheat. So I'll just close with, I do hope that you vote that we go back to in-person tonight. I greatly appreciate everything you all do. It really is greatly appreciated. And, thank you for your dedication to our children. And thanks for letting me speak tonight. Thank you.
Okay, John, thank you so much for your time and your words this evening. Much appreciated.
I will get off. I'll try to get off. Yeah.
Okay, I have Daryl Grant. Don, please.
Okay, hello.
Hey, Daryl, how you doing today?
Not bad, not bad. Just real quick, I don't want to reiterate a whole bunch of things that have already been said, but I did just want to speak as a teacher that is teaching in a district that is a hybrid model. Is it challenging? Yeah. Is it frustrating? Yeah. But is it worth it? And I would say absolutely yes. We need to be able to serve all students, and remote learning cannot replace in-person learning in terms of quality, effectiveness, and just positive impact for many, and I would actually most learners. And again, I appreciate the time. I know many people have wanted to speak, so I won't take up any more of your time.
Okay, Daryl, thank you so much for your words this evening. Much appreciated. John Chase, I believe. Hello, John.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, please.
Okay, great. I am Pastor John Chase. I'm the senior pastor of New Life Church on Westwood here in town. And my wife and I also have twin boys that we adopted through DCF that are in 4th grade over at Maple Shade. They both have IEPs. They're in the special ed program. Just want to say right up front that special ed teachers have been doing a phenomenal job with our boys. They've done much better than I thought they would, truly. But it has reached a point where I think the effectiveness is just about done. They're at the point now where they really do need to go back. I'm not going to go through everything. You know, they played sports and stuff, but that's over. But I'd also like to speak to this part. I am a pastor in the community, and I deal with families in my church and in the community on a different level. And what I'm seeing is that many families are struggling right now. They're struggling with not the financial aspect or the work aspect. Most people have worked that out. It's frustrating, but they're able to work with it. But many families are at a breaking point right now. And I say that from my experience in dealing with families in that way. Our church has stayed open through the entire pandemic. We never shut down. We got a special, I wrote to the governor and we were allowed to stay open. We're not open just for 30 minutes on a Sunday. We're open for about 4 hours. We do 2 services. We have children's programs. We wear masks, we distance, we clean, we sing, we do everything that you normally do in a church like ours. And we haven't had one outbreak. We haven't had one situation. We've had families that have been exposed. They've done the right thing, stayed away, quarantined, and then come back when they're ready. I really believe that the people of this town are compassionate enough and smart enough to do this properly. I believe it's time for our kids to come back, not just my 2 boys. I love having them around. I wouldn't have adopted them if I didn't love having them around. But I also love sharing the twin terrors with the school system as well. But I would urge you, as well as I'm speaking for parents partnering for in-person learning, that Facebook group, to bring the kids back. I think it's time. So thank you very much. I won't take any more of your time.
Okay, Pastor Chase, much appreciative of your time this evening too. Thank you so much. Darlene Reese, please.
So first off, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Roy Sithik. I'm Darlene Reese's husband. I wanted to make a couple of points, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. I'm a physician, I'm a hospitalist, and I take care of patients in the hospital setting, mostly adults. I wanted to make a couple of points, which I think are important. First and foremost, I think that the school committee and the teachers and the schools have done a phenomenal job thus far, making the best of the situation. I understand that it's been difficult to try to come up with a remote learning option, but I think that what we're doing now is light years ahead of what we were doing at the end of the school year last year. So I wanted to commend you all for the hard work that you've done to try to promote this and to try to implement this effectively. So thank you for that. The points that I wanted to make is we all know from what previous speakers have said that, of course, COVID-19 is contagious. Of course, it's a serious disease. But we know, and again, when we follow the science, we know that kids are not as negatively impacted from COVID-19 as adults are. If you look at the case rates and the fatality rates among kids, I'll just quote a couple of statistics here. I don't want to bore you, but the state of Florida, when I looked at their Department of Public Health website, there have been up until now 108,172 cases among kids less than 18 years old in the state of Florida, and there have been 9 deaths. Now, while 9 deaths is tragic, and any deaths are tragic, I think that that's a very, very minuscule number when you look at the impact that the disease has on older adults instead of kids. Same thing in the state of California, another state that's been pretty significantly impacted by COVID-19. There have been 188,369 cases in people less than 18 years old, and of the entire state of California, there have only been 3 deaths in that age group, 3. So I think that the science speaks to the fact that kids are not as adversely impacted with COVID-19. And the other point that I wanted to make is that kids are not efficient spreaders. One of your previous speakers had mentioned that people who are more symptomatic are more likely to spread the disease, and that is true. Kids don't get as symptomatic and they're not as likely to spread. So I think that again, the points that I'm trying to make is that we can do this safely. I think we can get kids back into the schools and we can mitigate the risk to our teachers and to our staff members in school. But I think that the longer that we leave kids out of school, the more they're falling behind. And then, John had mentioned previously that these kids are going to be competing against other kids for spots in college, et cetera. They're falling behind, and I think that we need to really consider getting them back in school and getting them back where they need to be. And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sithik. Much appreciate your time as well. Thank you for your words. There's Leah. Don, please. And I'm just reading names as they appear, just so everyone knows. Sometimes it's not the person who shows up, but as they appear on the screen, that's how I'm reading them.
My list is actually populated differently than yours, so that's why I asked you to read the names.
Yeah,
Hi.
I'm trying to. Hi, Leah.
Sorry, hi. I appreciate the opportunity to express my thoughts and the time you're putting into hearing parents and staff across the district. I know this has been very hard this year. I want to say I've been impressed with the education that my high schooler has received, and I commend the teachers and the staff for the amazing effort and delivery of the curriculum. That said, I still have some questions and concerns that haven't been addressed. I know I personally have been working the hybrid model within my own district, and I can tell you that it carries many challenges and it lends to many disruptions as there are exposures and quarantining within the school. And I wanted to know if there's been a lot of discussion about how that will be handled. I can tell you that within my own district, we don't have a lot of subs. We're not getting more subs. You can't share subs across the schools. It really is, we're very short-staffed. We've had to close. We were live all fall. We closed right before Thanksgiving. We opened again a week ago. We had to close this past Sunday because of staffing. There were too many exposures. So that, I think that as parents across the district are reaching their frustration about all of this, they also need to understand once we go hybrid, that they could get a 7 p.m. phone call and email that they have to find childcare for the next day. And I haven't heard that said. And I don't know if parents understand that once we go live, that doesn't mean that we'll be live. Their class could get closed, their school could get closed, and the district could get closed. And I just want parents to hear that because I'm living it and it's really hard to live it, especially as a teacher, but also as a parent. I have a concern that being that we've had multiple exposures within the current live students at East Long Meadow schools and quarantining were needed, I wonder how we can send our students back at this exact time as the cases have risen in Western Mass, in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and the New England area. We have the holidays coming up. We know that Thanksgiving, we had our exposures within 2 weeks, but those 2-week exposures also exposed other people. And so it takes actually 4 weeks for you to see the ramifications of these holidays. And if we send the kids back January 19th, we're not past that 4 to 5 week time period. For those talking about students competing against kids, against other children in the world, I have a sophomore. I have the same concerns. I want her back at school more than anything. I want her live. I want her in front of her teachers. Our teachers are amazing. I sit here on Wednesdays when I'm virtual, now fully virtual, and I am impressed with everything they're doing. But students across the world are going to be facing the same challenges our students are in East Long Meadow. They are out of school as well. They're doing virtual. Nobody's back live full. They're all in the same boat and they're all going to be in the same boat as we go forward. I know everyone's frustrated. I know they're struggling. I know we feel like we're at our end. However, we've made it this far and I feel we need to think about our children's safety while we provide the excellent education. I implore you to consider putting off the return to live instruction to at least January 29th when we've passed that 4 to 5 week time period, and to consider that that date may need to be pushed again as we track trends of rising cases and hospitalizations, and we send the students when it has decreased to a more manageable level. I had a friend go into the emergency room Saturday night, sat in the hallway for 48 hours without getting care. Finally got admitted, was not COVID, and it was not anything. It was a car accident and got pushed out to a rehab center. They are almost at their max at Bay State. They are flooded right now. And we're about to go into Christmas. And we know people are going to not quarantine and not follow the recommendations. I just am asking you to please push it past that January 19th date. I think it's too close and I just wanted to express it. I appreciate you listening to my point of view and thank you for everything you do.
Okay, Leah, thank you so much for all your points and your time this evening. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Don, how about Elizabeth O'Neill, please?
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. O'Neill. Good to hear from you. Go ahead.
Hi, how you doing? Brendan O'Neill.
Yeah, Brendan, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Okay, I got 2 kids in a high school. One's a new student. So I just add the comments that it's been pretty hard, I think, for students that are new to the public system coming in, that all of a sudden they're in a new school with kids that they don't even get to meet. You know, their friends are virtual, you know, for the first time. I think that's a disservice. Just I know it's a small number, but a disservice. And 2, while I think in our experience, the academics, the teachers have really tried. They have put forth good effort. I can say that. All in all, it's subpar. We have standards that have to be met. Students that take AP have a test they have to pass, and I think they're putting those types of students at risk, being that the standards are subpar. Other communities do it, so I just think it's time we kind of put our big boy pants on and do it too.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you. I appreciate you checking in tonight. Good to hear from you. How about Kelly, please, okay. Mr. Mackey?
Yep.
Hi, how are you guys tonight?
Hi, Kelly. Good. How are you?
Good. My name is Kelly Bruce. I am a parent of two 10-year-old girls that go to Maple Shade. I've written open letters to both the school committee and the Board of Education of Massachusetts, imploring that we stay remote, not only for the health and safety of our children, but for the fact that closing the school, opening up and closing the school and then opening up again, that has proven in other communities is just not reliable. And once you open up the school, unfortunately, I know from my position, my protection of being at home with my children is lost. All of a sudden, now I have to go back into the office. And with the requirement, if they get exposed, of coming and getting them within an hour is not going to be happening. I work far away and my husband is on the road all the day. I don't know other parents' situation, but the protection that's put in place for not having a place to put your students or your children during the day has guaranteed me the ability to be home with them and to work home from them. Also, with the opening of the building, it just loses that protection. So that's something that I really want you guys to think about. Some parents will not be able to come get their students within an hour. Some parents might not have an option once the building's open to, work remotely anymore. I also wanted to thank all the teachers and the staff at Maple Shade. They have been incredible. This week, my girls have given presentations. They've done projects. They've worked in groups. I have one on an IEP and one that is not. My child on an IEP, we actually had an IEP meeting. Her skill set level has gone up. She's advocating for herself. She's doing everything that she needs to do to be successful. So again, I want to thank you guys and thank you for your time and thank the teachers, staff, and administration for everything that they have done. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Much appreciate that, your willingness to speak tonight. Thank you. Don, how about Jessica Medeiros, please?
Hello.
Hello, Jessica.
Hi, this is actually not Jessica. I'm actually logged in under her account because I couldn't get into the meeting.
Who are we speaking with then?
This is Kelly Quigley.
Okay. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak and advocate for the children and families in East Long Meadow. My name is Kelly Quigley. I've been working in the mental health field for the last 25 years. I'm a licensed mental health provider in our community and a school adjustment counselor in a neighboring town. I'm here to speak as an advocate for children and families and to express concern for the surging mental health crisis we are experiencing as a result of this pandemic and related isolation. At my private practice, I have had a significant influx in mental health referrals for children of all ages in East Long Meadow and surrounding towns. Parents, pediatricians, and school professionals are reporting mental health concerns, which include decreased motivation, apathy, isolation, increased substance abuse, self-harm, academic disengagement and failing grades, suicidal thoughts, depression, and anxiety. The mental health needs are overwhelming and far outweigh the available resources. I'm finding that many, if not most, therapists in our area are at capacity and with very long wait lists. The data is very alarming. Between September and December of 2020, I've received the following number of referrals for mental health treatment through the Psychology Today website. I have received 72 phone calls from parents and professionals seeking mental health services for children. During this time frame in 2019, the number of calls were 17. I received 31 emails from parents and professionals seeking mental health services for children. Those are emails. During this same time frame in 2019, the number of emails were 5. Data from the Psychology Today platform of referral shows a 368% increase in the number of mental health referrals made to me for mental health treatment between September to December 2020 in comparison to the same time frame last year in 2019. Separate from the Psychology Today platform of referral, I've received an additional 68 calls from parents who have been referred through their pediatrician's recommendation, self-referral, EAP programs, hospitals, and/or word of mouth. This is September through December 2020. In summary, I've received a total number of 171 referrals between September and December of 2020, and this is in just 4 months. This is just my stats as one part-time mental health provider. I'm sorry to report that I cannot service all these individuals, nor can many of my colleagues. I'm sorry that I can oftentimes not call back in a timely fashion. There's no doubt that most of us have experienced crisis and trauma to one degree or another as a result of this pandemic. The research of crisis and trauma shows us that following a traumatic event, stabilization is essential for growth. Mental health and social emotional stability is one of our basic needs for survival. School provides socialization, connection, structure, positive stimulation, and stability, all very important factors in stabilizing the mental health of our children. It's very difficult for kids to achieve healthy social emotional development and academic growth when they cannot stabilize appropriately. While teachers and staff have been doing an excellent job in the most difficult of situations, remote learning cannot replicate the in-person learning and school environment. As you make your decision of whether to allow our students the choice to return to school safely, please take into consideration this data on the emerging mental health crisis of our children. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Kelly, we thank you for your perspective and your words this evening. Thank you so much. Don, how about Alex Kogan, please?
All right. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Alex, how are you this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Good evening.
ahead.
My name is Alex Kogan, and I'm a member of Parents Partnering for In-Person Learning. I wanted to speak to you today to express the critical situation we're in and urge for the committee to return the schools to being in person. I think we can all agree 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. When it comes to the kids, in my opinion, they have been hit the hardest. Since March, the kids have been isolated at home, missing out on their usual routine of sports, friends, face-to-face education, after-school activities, and even homework. Lack of personal contact for such a prolonged time is causing the children to lose friendships and worse, forget how to behave around peers and others. Scarier than anything, isolation can lead to depression, and as a parent, this is my biggest concern. When the virus was new to us 10 months ago, it is understandable why these unprecedented safeguards had to be taken. However, the school system was unprepared for the drastic change of a fully remote implementation. The quality of the education children were receiving was subpar, with little to no actual teaching being done. Parents had to step in to be full-time employees where they work, as well as almost full-time teachers, and we did. As much as we all tried, these kids lost out on half a year of education and knowledge. Giving credit where credit is due, implementing the full remote model in September went much better than I expected, with actual classes being run by teachers who are actually teaching new material, night and day compared to March through June. With all respect and appreciation for what the teachers are trying to do remotely, although this time we have a better process in place, it is straining on the students, and probably the teachers, to be glued to computer screens for almost 7 daily hours with just a few small breaks in between. One of my children complains of headaches, which is a direct correlation to the excessive screen time. This strain, coupled with system glitches, at times unstable Wi-Fi, causes undue stress for the students. The exhaustion and stress are clearly evident in the kids by end of the school day, and also is reflected in behavior. Also, there continues to be a lack of actual peer-to-peer contact, causing further fear of depression in the kids. We're now about 10 months into the pandemic. While there are members of the medical community and scientists who have opposing views on many various factors of the disease, there's consensus from the doctors and scientists in that school needs to be in person. The CDC, the Surgeon General of the United States, Governor Baker, and many others are advocating for in-person learning, and so are we. I understand there will be parents who want their children to remain fully remote, and I appreciate their opinion. There are a number of school systems in Massachusetts and around the country where this choice is left to the parents, and East Long Meadow should adopt this system in January. Parents should have the choice of sending their children to school versus remote. The school needs to accommodate both options, understanding the needs vary from child to child and family to family. I'm going to finish by saying education is essential, and I am urging the school committee to reopen the schools at the beginning of January. The parents must decide what's best for their children and families, and they have to have the options I've outlined. Thank you for your time.
Alex, thank you so much for your time and your statements this evening. We have Christine Rolfe. Please, Don.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi Christina, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you so much for hearing all the people in town this evening. It's really awesome. I am also representing the Parents Partnering for In-Person Learning Group, also known as 3PL. I got 3 kids in the school system right now. Our family did definitely face obstacles when the committee announced that we were going to be siding with the 18% minority and going fully remote. It was like pure panic because at the time in August, we were a family of 5 on 1 income and we have a kindergartner. There's no way that 1 income could have continued with a kindergartner at home. It just wouldn't have been realistic. And so thus the panic. So I just want to share my personal experiences with my kids so everyone can kind of understand where parents are coming from, and especially this particular parenting group. So my oldest is in 8th grade, and through many struggles in 7th grade, she finally got herself together and she was getting A's and B's. I was super, super proud of her. And bam, then remote learning started. And this is the 2nd term in which she's failing almost all of her classes. She had to start professional therapy. She's getting evaluated for depression, anxiety, ADD. These are things that never were even a concern in the past with her. I have one in 4th grade, and he was doing okay at the beginning, but he's beginning to slip too. Most of the change we've noticed with him is in his attitude and his disrespectfulness and disruptiveness at home, which definitely has a link to the schooling. And he's even had parent-teacher conference requests, which is something he's never had before. Now, my youngest, my 5-year-old, the one who we were panicking about, he is doing absolutely phenomenal. The reason for this is because we withdrew him from public school and we stuck him in a private school that is full-time in-person Monday through Friday, up to 10 hours a day if you need it. The only reason why we were able to do this is because we got a scholarship, so we're very thankful for that. But it is a school of 100 kids full of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who has only had 1 case pop up and no one else got sick. So if a 3, 4, and 5-year-old school can do it, then we can definitely do it too. With all this said, I'm strongly encouraging the committee to vote yes to offering at least a hybrid model option. Full in-person is my preference as a parent. And thank you so much, everyone in the committee, for your time this evening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Christina, for your willingness to speak tonight. Much appreciated. Kim Rizzo, Don? Hi, Kim. If you could take yourself off mute, please. Kim, you're still on mute. If you could take yourself off mute.
Hi, I'm Kim Rizzo. I'm a single mom in town of 2 children. I have a 6th grader, a 6th grade son at Birchland, just started this year, and a 4th grader over at Mountain View. And I can completely reiterate a lot of what people are saying, but I really just wanted to come out and make sure that I spoke today for one main reason. Just a little background knowledge on me. I personally am a teacher myself. I'm a teacher in the public school system in Agawam, and we've been running both hybrid and remote models since September. So parents in the town of Agawam have been given an option to choose full remote for their children if they are concerned about the spread, I know, of the coronavirus and things like that. But parents who are interested and willing to send their kids to school for that in-person learning, they are able to participate in that hybrid model. And I can speak for the town of Agawam and just say that, they've done a fantastic job with keeping things, clean, masks on. We've had 0 outbreaks in the school community. The outbreaks that have happened outside of the school community, but within the school community, it's been very doable, and there have been little to no cases. I guess the reason for me wanting to speak up today, and I'd like to just read this email to you, is my son, who has always been a very good student, has struggled immensely with this. He was a Mountain View student last year, the March to June shutdown, and struggled. He had a lot of people checking in on him, and that's not typical of my son. I reached out to Birchland Park with my concerns about my son and his state of mind. He was searching depression symptoms online. He was constantly distracted by things in the home. He's definitely not a go-getter. He's someone who needs to be motivated, and being home in a home setting where things can be distracting wasn't going so well for him. Turns out he ended up failing a class, almost 2, this past term. And so I reached out to Birchland Park, just expressing my concern and the need for these kids to get back in school. As a teacher, differentiation has been something that we have been pushing for years. We should be differentiating to meet the needs of all of our students. And not all of our students can learn this way. Not all of our students have the capacity to buckle down and do their best and learn from home. And I'm not a big public speaker, so I kind of went back and forth about speaking tonight. But after reaching out to Mr. Allen at Birchland Park, he really was wonderful in expressing my concerns with my son and my not wanting to see my son fail. He mentioned that there was an option at Birchland Park to send Vinny to school 3 days a week for in-person learning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Mask on, kind of like the hybrid model that we're doing in Agawam, but it's not an open invitation, it doesn't seem like. Anyways, he's only attended 3 days, and today alone I got this email from his teacher, Mr. Steele. He says, "Vincent, I just want to take a minute to let you know that I've seen a huge turnaround with your effort, attitude, as well as the work you've been doing in math since you've been coming to Birchland. You've stepped up to the plate and took ownership. Keep it up as we move into the second half of marking period 2 and beyond, Mr. Steele." And for me, that was very telling, that some of these kids just have to be in school. They just do. And like I said, as a teacher, differentiation has always been a huge part of this, and it's just not happening right now. My daughter in 4th grade is doing okay. She's holding her own, and but my son just can't do it. And I guess I just want to say, please consider what other towns and districts have done with giving parents and children the option to come back for in-person learning. hybrid model in person. However, I know it would be a week on, week off, however they decide to do it. I think that it's doable. Towns are doing it. I think East Long Meadow is one of the only towns that has not attempted to implement any kind of hybrid in-person learning yet. And I think it'd be worth a shot, especially after what Kelly said. The mental health of our children really is at stake here. I've never seen my child so sad. And as a parent, it's really hard to watch that happen, especially since I'm a teacher too. I'm going through both. I've got the parent, I'm the parent who's at home with her kid, and seeing what they're going through, and the kids coming to school every day, even though they're wearing masks, and I teach second grade, they're happy to be there. They really, really are. And I think it's really good. It's good for everybody. So thank you for listening. And again, I want to reiterate what everybody else was saying. I'm a teacher too, and I commend everybody's efforts. I know this is not an easy time. I know everyone's trying their hardest. I'm in that same boat, but nothing can replace in-person education. It just can't. So thank you for listening tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kim, for speaking.
Did I just get rid of Greg? I did.
Think you did, because I'm still here.
Good, Don.
Get rid of me.
He has his hand
Just-
raised and
Yeah, I see him.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Clearly, Kim was a much more interesting speaker than myself, so I don't take it personal, Don.
These things jump around on their own, I'm telling you.
I hear you. Thank you, Kim, for speaking this evening. Much appreciated. Chrissy Reed Lyman, please, Don.
Okay.
And this may be our last speaker, although now I see another new one. So. Hi, Chrissy. You're on mute. If you could take yourself off, please.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you this evening?
I'm just reaching out just to be quick and simple. I have 3 children in the East Long Meadow school systems. I have one in Meadowbrook, one in Birchland, and one in the high school. My 2 older ones have never been in Birchland, never been in the high school, and they have been out of school since March. They're all struggling. Not one of them is having an easy time with the transition with remote. My concern is my middle daughter has major anxiety with not getting things done. My older one is just not understanding. She's a more in-person student. And my younger one that's in 1st grade, he cannot stay engaged. So I'm just asking you guys to please give the option for parents to choose. If their children need to be in school, let them choose to be in school. And if they want to keep them home, let them stay home. But give us a choice for our children. And that's what I'm asking you, and I thank you very much.
Chrissy, thank you very much for speaking this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don, I think we have Aaron, and that might be our last speaker.
Hello.
Hello, Aaron.
Hi. Thanks so much for opening this up for all of us parents and members of the community to just voice our feelings on the matter. And I'm not gonna get into everything because I agree with the bulk lion's share of what many parents have said today, my husband as well. Our sons definitely have done better than I thought. But it's worn out, and the engagement is dwindling by the day. And to piggyback on what somebody said about their children and their attitudes at home and their behavior, it is evident that they need more than just mom and dad and a sibling at home. They need to be with their peers because they're starting to act like we're their peers and we're not. We're their parents. And I think there's a bit of losing sight of that because they're home. But I'm not here to push either way. All I am asking is for the same option given to either be remote or let parents choose to send their kids back. I know a lot of people they don't want their kids back. That's fine. That's your decision. But give those of us who are seeing such a negative impact with our children not being in school that same option. It's a sacrifice for everybody. I heard the teachers, what do we do? How do we clean? Every part of our life right now is a sacrifice. We don't go to the grocery stores as a family anymore. We don't go putzing at Walmart as a family anymore. We don't get together with our families for big holiday celebrations. It's a sacrifice for everybody. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. But that's where we are right now. So why should our children not be able to go back to school in some capacity? We all need to come together, and it's a sacrifice for all. And so I am asking, please, please, please open up some level of in-school learning. And I promise you, you will love the twins. They are amazing, and you'll want them there all the time. Seriously. And one last plug, completely unrelated, Gordon. I was at lunch, getting lunch today, and I love these women. They're amazing. And I told them that I would put a plug in for a propane heater to be outside. And they told me that they've heard that they're on back order. And I said, I have somebody I can talk to. Gordon, they need a heater. It's chilly out there. Come on. But I told her I'd do it. So you can tell them, if you see them, the crazy lady that always talks about how my kids will eat their spaghetti and not my spaghetti, plugged the heater. So thank you everybody so much, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Erin, for speaking tonight.
Thank you so much.
Erin, if we could just have your last name for Mrs. Sleddy for the record, please. I think we lost her. Okay, we've got a few more that I saw before, and they're back up again. So, Mr. Mackey, John Wiedersheim, please. Hey, John. Go ahead, please. John, we're not hearing you for some reason. You're not on mute, but we don't have volume. Now off mute? Yep. No, we can't. Do you have something plugged in? A headphone or anything? No. Maybe if you log out, John, and come back in. You want to give that a shot? Okay, he seems to be frozen now. So, Mr. Mackey, can we bring in Kelly Eddy, please?
Yep. I did that. Honestly, it's not me.
If you say so.
Hi there.
Hi, Kelly. Mr. Mackey, that's twice. I'm keeping score here, my friend.
It's fine.
That's fine. That's okay. Kelly, go ahead, please.
It maybe has to do with hair, Greg. You know,
Maybe. I
belong-
don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Please go ahead, please.
That's okay. Sorry. I know a lot has been said, you know, on the importance of coming back in, and I definitely don't dispute that, as you and the rest of the school committee know. I think what is just really the point to hit home tonight is that a revisit in January after the spread of holiday COVID gets finalized, not putting our kids in with the teachers. I know a lot of people have talked about the kids tonight. And I know that there's been some teachers on that have said, you know, they want their kids back in. I think that if we were talking about September, October, even November, you and I both know that that would have been a much more transitional time where there would have been great opportunities to interact with our teachers safely, windows open, outdoor classroom space. You know, we're in the Northeast. We need to remember this. The districts that have been bouncing back and forth have some serious staffing issues. The day after our last meeting, and someone got on and praised the attempts of Long Meadow to be able to continue in remote that next day. The superintendent has expressed the ultimate frustrations with trying to run a school system with little to no subs staffing. And at this point in time, I would really urge the fact that a lot of people are talking about our kids, but very few people are talking about our teachers. We need to support our teachers. We need to remember that they are the ones that are vulnerable to this particular COVID disease. Regardless of what the children are saying, they will be back. They absolutely will be back this year. I do not doubt that. We have the first launches of the vaccination happening as we speak. Please, people, listen to us. At this time, it is not a pressing time to go back on January 19th when we have an opportunity to let our teachers get vaccinated in February and then have them come into the buildings and come into the classrooms and interact with our kids again, and they will all be happy. We will all be happy. We need to be patient a little bit longer. It is our duty to respect these teachers and our staff. Thank you.
Kelly, thank you so much for speaking this evening. We do appreciate it. Mr. Mackey, John's back if you want to give him a shot again, please. Hey, John.
That wasn't me.
I know. Let's go with Lisa while John tries to work that out, please.
All right.
John? Yep.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, John's here. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
So I first want to thank all of you for your hard work. And I just don't think a lot of, amen to what Kelly Eddy was just saying, because what we're doing right now, I can tell you right now, every single teacher out there would love to have a full classroom in front of them in person. We all want that. We really do. But it even says in our mission statement, in a safe environment. We're going into a Category 5 storm at that moment. And it's not even 2 weeks after the Christmas break, which other people were saying, right? So if we had the opportunity to push it back, and as Kelly was saying, teachers getting vaccinated, and I can say that I've had conferences with parents, and the number of parents that actually have or had COVID and had to be isolated in their rooms. And I had one parent tell me to, you know, she works at Bay State. She said it's completely maxed out, right? So if I went to school to bring a change of clothes with me, so I wouldn't possibly infect my children or my parents who are sick and they're quarantined at home and I'm their only lifeline. Now, this is not just about we want the safest environment for our children, but we also want to have an environment where there isn't a distraction where there would be now. Teacher anxiety is through the roof because of the timing more than anything. We all want to be back in school. We all want to be teaching in person. But I can tell you this, from what I've heard from parents that I've talked to, and about not just Maple Shade, but schools are in the town in general, are very happy with the instruction that's going on now. And another person that was saying that if you go back and then you have to come back home for a week and then go back again, you're losing a lot of time there. So I would piggyback on what Ms. Eddy was saying is just, I mean, we've been doing this since March. It's been much better since the fall. Let people get vaccinated, make sure it's working, and there will be an environment that'll be a lot more in unison between student and teacher. People think that their child is going to go back and we're going to be over their shoulder working out of a textbook with them. It's just not happening like that. And the online right now, at least if I have a student who has a question, we can answer them within seconds. And the instructional model that we have going forward can work. We want a safer environment for ourselves and the children. And that's all we're saying is that January 15th, you're talking not too long after, and we know people are going to get together, and we know there's going to be another spike. I've had 5 out of 13 people that I've had discussed conversations with as far as our meetings have or had COVID. That's a high percentage that's going to be in front of me when you have children 3 times a day, they're going to be eating without a mask in an already not so great ventilated school. I stand by the community and the teachers who have been, for the most part, 90%, really praising the efforts. It's a lot more work. I have 3 children at home that are all doing the same thing. I have a wife who's a professor and a doctor who's in the basement. We're making it work. We're doing the best we can to make it work. We will not be sending our kids back until we feel it's a safe environment for them. And some of the just flat out false statements of, this doesn't really affect kids. Kids aren't really big spreaders is completely bogus. So it's not just about safety of, just children and just teachers. It's that whole environment. And it's people who have, sick parents at home and all that. And the other gentleman who was saying, well, only 9 kids died in Florida. What if that was your kid? What if that was your kid who died and you wanted to go back just a couple of weeks earlier before a vaccine was available? And just let's see what happens. That puts the anxiety level through the roof for a lot of educators. And if you think they're going to get as good of an education they're getting now on January 15th, it's not going to happen because there's going to be an adjustment to be made there. And there's a very good chance we'll be going back home again. So that's a huge disruption. So we have a model that the school committee, and we've had many people that worked on this for a long time to make sure that the teachers have been meeting. We've been meeting all through the summer to put this together. And I know every person that has said, yeah, the March is nowhere near what it is like in the fall, but that didn't happen overnight. This was a lot of people putting a lot of hours into making this work. And I got to say, the class that I have now, the relationships that we've built, being able to talk to each other, having this, the school district has offered us so many platforms to work with online. And we're very thankful for that because not a lot of communities get that. The technology that we have here at this school, in this town, is bar none to anybody else. And that's praise to Gordon and the technology committee and everybody involved to make that happen, that everybody could have a device, that everybody could, when we go online and we have breakout rooms and we're talking and we're having conversations and what the kids are able to learn, putting things together in multimedia and being creative, and teachers being creative with each other and making the day fun. I've had it happen twice this past week where when 2:30 hit, I had every single student ask me to stay longer in class. So for those of you saying that it's not working, there's a bigger picture out there because it is for now. We don't want this to be long-term. Nobody does. but we want this to be a safe environment for everybody involved. And if that says a safe environment on our mission statement for our town and our schools, we need to think about this. January 15th is really quick. What's the rush? We've been doing this for so long, a couple more weeks, and then we'll be back in a safer environment. Hopefully people will be able to get vaccinated and we can move on. But this is taxing on everyone. We get it. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
John, we thank you for your time and thank you for speaking tonight.
Ah,
Did you knock the wrong person out again?
it's just, it's not me. I'm just telling you. I got it in for you, Greg.
I'm not going to say a word. Don, we have Lisa Dagnoli, and I think she'll be our last speaker. There's a few that have put their hand up to re-speak, but at an hour and 35 minutes, I think we're just going to limit it to speaking once.
Here comes Lisa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, Lisa, please go ahead.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
Hi, I'll be quick. I know it's been a long night for you guys. I just wanted to piggyback on, I thought Mr. Kogut spoke really well and hit all the points, but I'm also a member of the Parents Partnering for In-Person Learning, or the 3PL. I do agree with what everyone said, and I think what's coming out tonight is you guys have done a tremendous job, and I don't think there's a debate about that. And, you know, on John's comment, I totally agree. Everybody wants a safe environment, but how do you choose between healthcare workers and teachers and everybody else that has to go to work every day? So, you know, I think I trust the CDC. I trust their recommendations, and, you know, it's working. The masks, the distancing, it's working. It's working in a lot of schools. My brother has kids in the Simsbury schools in Connecticut. They are all full in person since September. They have a couple days out or time off if one pod, there's a positive case. They come back to school. The numbers are low. My daughter goes to Suffield Academy. She's a 9th grader. She's been full in person through the Thanksgiving break. Very little, she didn't miss a day of in-person learning. Even when they had a positive case, they would do the contact tracing, and the kids would be quarantined. But, you know, if she wasn't part of that pod, they kept going to school. Very few cases. So, you know, I don't think anybody wants to put any teachers in danger or kids in danger. I think it's a choice. Somebody said that, you know, you can choose remote, and everybody else just wants the choice to have in-person learning. The kids are struggling. Their mental health is struggling. It's a scary situation when you have these kids in a house alone for months and months and months. I think we've been really patient. So, you know, all I want to say is when there's a will, there's a way. It's working. It can be done. It's being done in other communities. It's being done all around us in our surrounding communities. So please, I beg of you, please consider the CDC, consider the professionals across America that are basically saying it's safe to send these kids back to school, and it's safe for our teachers. So, you know, there's all these safety measures in place that are working to keep our teachers, administrators, and kids safe. So as far as that mission statement comment, he'll be in a safe environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa, for speaking this evening. We do appreciate it. Okay, we are going to move forward now. Don, there's a speaker out who just came in that has not spoke yet, so we'll do that. So we have Kimberly Turnberg. One more, please. And then I'm going to close it for speakers, please. Hi, Kim.
Hi, good evening. So I am a parent of 5 kids. Some have graduated from our school system. I'm also a teacher in the school system. And I would like to see this decision being made with all of you meeting in person, socially distanced, wearing masks. If that's what we're deciding for our kids to do, in all fairness, I think that's how the decision should be made.
Okay, thank you, Kim. I appreciate you speaking tonight. Okay, we're going to move forward now with the rest of our meeting. We do greatly appreciate all the input we have received over the last few months. The entire committee, the leadership team have received lots of emails, lots of input, phone calls. I can assure you that I've read every single email that I've received and spoken to many people on the phone, as have my fellow committee members. And we thank you all for your input. It takes all of us to openly discuss this. Transparency is utmost important, and I believe we've all accomplished that collectively as a community. So I thank you for all those who were willing to speak this evening and former meetings. Mr. Smith, I think at this point, if we could move on with our update of our learning model, which is the only item on our agenda. And would you think it'd be appropriate to start with our health professionals so that we can let them go on with their evening if they have other things to do? Is that appropriate?
Sure. Yeah, no, it makes sense. I think you may want to bring the leadership team in so everybody's ready to go, and then we can move from the discussion with the health professionals.
I would just prefer to just start with the health professionals if we can get an update from them, and then we'll bring the leadership team in, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So Ms. LeBombard and Dr. Clark. Thank you both for coming this evening. Just looking for some updates. I greatly appreciate all your time so far this evening and prior meetings. Has anything changed since we spoke last week? Any thoughts on returning in person or staying remote, things of that nature? Would one of you like to start?
Not much has changed. The transmission rate is still high and continuing to go higher. Testing is still very much available. However, we were told today by Bay State it's now up to 4 days for an answer. We've been calling for things that were done on Saturday and over the weekend, and we're not getting all the results as quickly as we had been. Other than that, I think everything is pretty much the same. If you have specific questions that I can answer, I'd be glad to.
Dr. Clark, you mentioned Bay State. Do you know the turnaround time on testing for the Stop the Spread sites by
I think
chance?
the Stop the Spread is still 48 hours. People get those results directly, so they get them directly to their email. So it's a little bit harder for me to keep track, but the parents are still telling me that they're getting them as quickly as 48 hours. The line is longer though, and people are lining up way before they start. So, and some people, depending on where you're going, I know Holyoke Community College turns away people daily.
There is a new site at the UMass Mullins Center.
Yes.
I actually went on that website today, and today is what, the 15th? I was able, if I wanted a test today, I wouldn't be able to get one. It was saying that I could schedule a test either Monday the 21st or Tuesday the 22nd. That's how far out it is, even though it's a brand new site. And you do have to have an appointment, but it is for asymptomatic people. And it is free.
So if you are symptomatic, you don't need an appointment, or you can't go there?
You can't go there. It's for
Okay.
no symptoms.
I see. And so at what point, in both of your perspective, does testing availability and delay in results become an issue for students in schools versus fully remote?
Well, especially with close contacts. If you're a close contact, you're supposed to be out 14 days. Now they're saying you can get a test at day 8, but it may take you a long time to get an appointment, or not to get an appointment, but to get the test and then wait for the results. So that could be a teacher, that could be a student, could be a family member.
So I guess my question is testing readily available now in terms of, so if someone's a close contact, correct me if I'm wrong, they should wait a few days anyway before they're tested. So if they made an appointment when they realized they were close contact, and they would be notified by the town, correct? If they were a close contact, then they go get their test, and then it would take a couple days to get their test results back. Is that an appropriate time frame to be useful in the school setting?
I think it's still going to be an issue. I think it's great if it's the student that has to wait for the result. We just take that student out of the classroom. But if it's the teacher, we're taking the teacher out of the classroom. So it will complicate it. The teacher can teach the class remotely. They can still be in person. That's one option that you can work with, as long as there's somebody monitoring the classroom. But the delay in test results is just, I think getting the results is more of a problem. I think we're going to be able to order the testing more efficiently. What we're seeing across the board medically, though, that you keep hearing on the news, is staffing. So I don't know that Bay State's slowing down necessarily. Yes, the volume has gone up, but they have also a lot of people out who are quarantined as well. So, and the same issues you guys are speaking about with finding substitute teachers.
Right.
etc.
We've tried to address part of it, at least part of these staffing issues. We are certainly aware that many districts are feeling that, and a lot of districts who have more in-person learning are pivoting to more remote learning a lot of times because of staff. We're in a process of hiring some permanent substitute teachers that will report to the schools every day, know the kids, know the teachers. We will give them the technology equipment. And so we think we can address part of that, but certainly your point is valid that staffing, probably more likely than anything, could be the issue that pivots us back to remote whenever we do decide to come hybrid. Is that a fair statement? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing I want to ask.
Can I ask a
Go ahead,
question,
Carrie.
Craig?
Yeah, please.
Gordon, I don't know if you can shed any light on what the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has been proposing for districts that are either fully in person or hybrid in regards to on-site testing that's available for schools to apply for based on their capacity to bring students back in some form.
I think they've been proposing the rapid test. Am I right, Kelly, on that? And
It's the Binax Now test. And what it is, it's not a PCR test. So if you have that test, you still have to get a PCR test. So we did not apply to get any of those tests because the PCR is the test that we're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
The other question I had, it's been addressed a little bit this evening, is we should all celebrate the fact that vaccine has been approved by the FDA and a potential solution to this is on its way. There's been discussion about the time frame, the state of Massachusetts potentially putting teachers earlier in the line, which again, we applaud that as an effort to help us all. Can we though look at the time frame from both of your perspectives? In all reality, when do we look at potentially obtaining herd immunity, which is what I believe and understand what we're trying to get to, a certain percentage of those that have been vaccinated, 70 to 75%. When is a realistic time frame that we might achieve that goal? Do either of you have something to say about that?
If it's typical of most of the vaccines, it's within 6 weeks after the second vaccine.
Okay, but in terms of distribution, and so when do my kids and when do I and when do all of us have the opportunity for the vaccine, and then 6 weeks after that? Any idea when does that look like? Summertime or
So
fall?
it looks like the children have not been FDA approved as yet to receive the vaccine. It's only approved for children 17 and over, which is very few of them. You, assuming that you're healthy and under 65, will probably get the vaccine in April or be eligible to get it in April. So I think we're looking at next school year, possibly having some requirements. I know the Moderna vaccine is starting to go through now, and they might have different requirements for the children. They might be approved for children. I don't know. Most of these things are going to go through for adults before they go through for children anyway. So it might be that we have all the teachers vaccinated and then kids are getting vaccinated during the school year next year.
Next year. So I guess my point to that question is the vaccine, although we celebrate it and we're excited that it has arrived, it won't really vaccinate all of us this year, right?
No.
Okay.
No. I still want to emphasize that the spread, it's happening in our communities. It's not really happening within the schools. We're not identifying any cases that have transmitted within the school setting. So it is nerve-wracking, and we all know that. That's why everybody was speaking tonight on various sides, on various positions of the debate. But I think we're going to have to bite the bullet to get them back. And whether we wait until we see a peak after the surge for the holidays and then start, I think we're really losing them academically and emotionally. And if we just get beyond that peak, I think we can safely start bringing them back. The other thing is the MIAA is approving sports. It's kind of, if we can't get them in to educate them, I mean, we're approving sports. I think sports have been approved safely. This is about putting our kids first. I don't think it's feasible. We have the opportunity. People can keep them out and keep them remote. That's an opportunity that they have, and I think they should utilize it.
Dr. Clark, what about, if you don't mind giving a plug in terms of what families, what community members can do to help us locally if we do decide to come back into schools to slow down the spread, make what certain efforts that we can all try to help to slow it down?
I think it's the same thing that we've been doing all along. I think we really have to be vigilant about it. Masks need to be worn everywhere. If you have someone into your home, they need to be masked, and so do you. I would cut down the gatherings in closed spaces. If you're having guests over, everybody needs to be masked. Washing your hands frequently. Not coming out if you're ill at all. I had patients this week who, thank God we get the reports from the ER. One of the children is positive, and the mother still showed up for physical exams with both of the other two children. That's a non-emergent visit. So I said to the staff, I saw them on the list, they're probably not coming because the brother's positive. And she said, oh, they're in the parking lot now. And the mother openly lied on our questionnaire. And, I get it. She thinks they need their physicals, but not to the detriment of everybody in my office. So we politely rescheduled her and asked her not to lie anymore. But, now the trust is gone. So.
And so what about symptoms that we should all be looking for? Our students, our staff, we're concerned about this, any kind of spread for everyone in our community. What sort of symptoms should we all be looking for that we should then say, okay, now I should go tested, even though I don't know of a close exposure, or I should quarantine, or I should isolate myself?
The key thing is that the symptoms are minor. For 99% of the people, the symptoms are sore throat, headache, scratchiness in the throat, maybe a cough, maybe shortness of breath, fever, even low-grade fever, vomiting, and diarrhea. Those have been the symptoms we've looked for all along. The problem is everybody thinks, oh, it's just a little bit of a sore throat. It's not that big of a deal. And I think that's why we're not getting tested and the spread is continuing. if you feel sick, just get tested. It's 2 days to wait for the test, or now up to 4 days to wait for the test. But you can stop the spread until that time. Once you get tested, you need to be isolated in your home until the test results come back.
Certainly worth reiterating. So if someone was to get a test, they should not go back into society until they receive the results of the test. And they should not get a test till a couple days after their believed exposure. Is that correct too?
It should be 5 to 7 days after the exposure. But if you have symptoms, you should be tested immediately.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Well, we thank you both again, always there for us to answer our questions, being the health experts. Both of your knowledge is invaluable to all of us. And thank you for hanging in there for such a long meeting this evening. And we will certainly look to speak with you in the future. So thank you both so very much.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Smith, should we bring in the leadership team?
Sure.
Okay, so administration, if you can come out of the dark and turn on your mics if you're going to speak. Thank you so much.
So I think we have everybody. Thank you everyone for being here. We're going to go through some slides that are in your packet to provide you an update, but also it's going to connect with a number of things that people have spoken about as we went through the public comment. So, certainly appreciate everybody who came out to provide some points, provide some perspective, and we'll try to work through our presentation quickly, but also do the same thing for all of you as we're looking at a challenging decision. So I'm going to share my screen. I think Mr. Mackey has given me permission to do so. And everybody see the presentation up? Okay, beautiful. So obviously we're giving you another update on the planning and the instructional models. Probably the biggest piece as we go to the second slide is regarding the fact that we had a questionnaire out there starting back on November 27th that went out to all of our families. And I think last week at this time we were hovering around a high of 78% and a low at one of the schools somewhere in the low 60s. Our schools have worked incredibly hard to reach out to their families. And you can see that now we're at 97%, 96%, 100%, 96%, 96%, with an average of roughly 97%. And we have a much better idea of where families feel they would like to participate. I think a number of families had indicated that there is the option, and that's one of the things that the school committee, with their foresight to not only learn more about how COVID-19 impacts a town, a school system, and the surrounding area, but also give all of us an opportunity to, one, focus in on the remote learning model, which I think we've done and done well. And I think certainly our parents and community have spoken to that, as well as our teachers. I can't say enough about our staff reinventing basically what we do on a daily basis, and have done that incredibly well. With this information, though, this really enables us as a leadership team to start to put together what does it look like to structure, whether it be a hybrid plan, or in some cases at the early onset of all of this discussion, we were talking, can you do full in person? Most of the parents, and especially the parents who are educators, had indicated that their districts are working in the hybrid. But probably most importantly, as everyone's learned through this fall, it's giving the choice because some of our families want to remain and understandably will remain in that full remote. And then we're working toward how we keep everyone moving forward together. And that's where a lot of our professional development around the live streaming in January will take place. Okay, let's see. So as we've looked at this and we've discussed not only the information from our parents, but what we can successfully do in schools as a leadership team, we know that you have to make a decision in terms of how we expand instructional, in-person instructional learning, or in-person learning rather, within the next few months. And we feel that we can effectively do this. And the key is going to be if we come back in a hybrid model and we allow for that choice that parents talked about. And I think also something that's really important, and I think a number of people said this, and certainly both Dr. Clark and Ms. LeBombard also stated this, you have kept the health experts and the medical advisors each month in the discussion with all of you. I think that has to continue. We have to look at what our local health data is telling us as we come out of the holiday break. But with that said, we do feel if we're reviewing that and that data is looking like we can start to expand in-person learning, then we would recommend the hybrid instructional model. What this does is it allows us to implement all the safety protocols and guidance that we've received from DESE, from Mass DPH, and to a certain extent, and parents were referencing this, CDC. It also allows us to revisit the procedures in hallways and procedures we're going to need. We had started to plan all of this out back in the summer in July and August. And at that time, during the week of August 3rd, with the 2 meetings, we had discussed, whether we're going to start hybrid or whether we're going to start in a fully remote model. And as everyone knows, we started in a remote model, predominantly remote, with a certain amount of students coming in to our schools starting on the first day of school. The hybrid will allow us to continue to safely bring in students and families that have chosen to have their students come in for in-person learning. We think we can effectively get this done. We've talked about throughout the fall, and I'm meeting with each school staff. I've met with 2 so far, meet with another one tomorrow. And we're talking about the different processes that we're using for cleaning and disinfecting our buildings. And it's not up there in terms of a bullet point, but it is something that I talked about in our meeting last week on December 7th. We also have changed what we're doing with our preventative maintenance around our HVAC. Every summer, we are working with our Department of Public Works to make sure that we're cleaning every classroom unit ventilator, and we're checking the exhaust fans and cleaning them up on our roofs. This summer, we did that. We did it with a much more heightened attention and tested at the end of August each building to make sure systems were working up to their capacity. We've also recently contracted with Ty & Bond, a local engineering firm, to not only look at our preventative maintenance plan, but also provide recommendations regarding anything else that we might need. And they were in schools last week. They will be up on roofs this week. And actually, I think it's a third party that's going to be a subcontractor that will be looking at the exhaust fans and giving us recommendations there. So this is work that's been ongoing and certainly would help us increase people in our buildings safely. The hybrid, as we've explained before, is a situation where we're going to split a given building's enrollment alphabetically, and then we'll designate an A cohort and a B cohort. We're going to work with our families to make sure that family members across the district, especially if there might be last names that are different, that we're connecting family members and making sure they're on the same cohort so that we're not causing greater challenge to families with their children being in 2 different cohorts. And we know that all of this work is challenging. It's challenging for us, it's challenging for families, and it's really a community coming together that makes us get through the challenges and find success. Basically with the hybrid, the revision that we talked about last week is that each cohort, instead of coming 2 days, will come for a full week for that in-person learning. And the off cohort, so if A is the cohort that's in person, the off cohort would be B, and they would be connecting to their classes and attending their classes through live streaming for that week. And then it would reverse in the next week. We also, in that live streaming, would be picking up our families who have chosen to remain fully remote. And so we're going to be connecting them and trying to keep them at the same pace with their teachers that we've had success with all fall. Some of the challenges, and I think these are spoken to by a number of parents who also happen to be educators, is that we know, having watched districts around us, districts in just over the border in Connecticut, that there will be disruptions. There will be times where we have an identified case and we are going to have to go into contact tracing and quarantining and so forth. I said this last week, and I want to say it again because our nursing staff and Kelly LeBombard have done an exceptional job. And we're on the front lines of that contact tracing. We're helping our local health departments and connecting with families. And our administrators have been fantastic. So we try to get that done as quickly and efficiently as possible so that we can keep people safe. We can identify where the close contacts are and make sure that they're aware, they're quarantining, and as people have mentioned in previous discussions, possibly going to get a test. There's probably no 2 ways about it, unfortunately, that if we're going to have disruptions, that means that families will need to have a contingency plan. I think someone spoke to Long Meadow's quick change to fully remote learning, and it's a challenge. I'm sure that much of that was not necessarily transmission of the virus in school, but more the fact that staff was quarantining and some may have been in isolation, and you no longer have the staff to keep a classroom, building, or district running for a certain amount of time. And so, we'll have to, as we make this decision and then come back out of the holidays and are looking at health data, if we go forward, we're going to have to ask our families to have a contingency plan, because there might be quick decisions as we identify certain situations and start to communicate with our families. It also creates a challenge, and this is something that we've been discussing since the summer, with transportation. We still have to implement safety protocols on all our buses. That reduces the ridership from possibly 1/2 to even 1/3, depending on what equipment and often the age of the riders. And so we have to start first and foremost with students whom we are legally required to transport, and make sure that we're putting in all the safety protocols and enabling that to happen efficiently for our families who we will be transporting, for whom we will be transporting their students. So see, these are some of the identified challenges. We are working hard at looking at that staffing one and trying to be creative. And I think Mr. Thompson mentioned earlier that, we're looking to hire permanent building subs. Those postings have gone up. I think certainly if we have college students who might be interested and they're on a longer break this year from college, that might be a population, at least for a few months, that could help us out. But we certainly are looking for people who are interested in helping us out to help make this transition of expanding in-person learning safe, because that's the key. And I think a number of people have said that, is that we're all in this together. The only way we're going to make sure that we reduce the risk as much as possible and keep people safe is that we're all following the strategies that people have talked about, wearing the masks, making sure that we're distancing and keeping proper and frequent hand hygiene, and making sure, and it's been said a few times, that if you're not feeling well, stay home. That's, we're no longer in an age where if, you're not feeling well, I'm going to power through a cold and, get my job done. I know that in the past that was seen as laudable. Now, unfortunately, that could mean that, these symptoms, if you're taking a self-inventory every day, that could mean, the possibility that you may have COVID. So stay home, protect yourself, protect others, go get tested, see your primary care physician, and get guidance that way. Wanted to, and the leadership team's here, but wanted just to give you a quick, and certainly you can ask questions as we go through, or maybe, Mr. Page or Mr. Wright can just give us a quick overview. You're not going to see, if we were going into hybrid, incredible changes in our schedules. And actually, I think with this schedule, it's almost exactly the same as our students are experiencing now in a predominantly remote model. But I'll defer to Mr. Page and Mr. Wright if they wanted to just give us a quick explanation of these schedules.
Yeah, I can talk quickly. So in regards to the high school's model, what we're going to be operating under is predominantly the same schedule that the students are going through right now. The kids who are at home when they're on their off week, and we're talking about a hybrid model, those kids who are at home are going to follow the same schedule that they typically would. They go through their A and B block first thing in the morning. We transition to that Spartan Sport block where they check in with their Spartan Sport block teacher, and then they'll have some opportunity to either engage with some of their teachers where they might need some extra help, work on things asynchronously, or just also begin their lunch break. The only part it might switch a little bit is for the kids who are going to be in person. We are going to be running the in-person lunches during that Spartan Sport block time. There's going to be 2 lunches that we're going to be running during the hybrid model, where one will start at approximately 10:15 and it'll run until about 10:45, and the second one will go from about 10:45 to 11:15. But beyond that, in the afternoon, we'll also transition again to our C and D blocks, and those again will be running on the same time frames that our C and D blocks run on now. So there's really no big change. The only change will be some tweaks to the lunch times with the in-person kids.
Thanks, Mr. Page. Moving to Birchland Park, I think the schedule here, and I'm sure that Dr. Allen or Mr. Martin can provide us more insight. There may be some slight changes to the blocks, but predominantly, I believe this is very much a similar schedule to the one they're running now, with the exception of that now they're going to run those 3 lunches where when you're predominantly remote, you have, I think, 1 lunch block time frame. But again, I'll defer to Dr. Allen or Mr. Martin or both.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. So this is a schedule that we still want to work through a little bit with our hybrid committee because it's a little different than we had planned in this summer. This incorporates some of the best practices we've definitely learned both from our own practice and from other districts. But basically, we right now have advisory plus 6 blocks plus tutorial. And in this hybrid schedule, we will have 6 blocks plus tutorial. We will not run we will not run advisory the same way because we are cohorting. So we are sticking to cohorts to limit cross spread between cohorts. And our advisory was always built for full remote only. So 6 classes, you can see the times range a bit, but like the first class will be longer because we'll have to transition in from outside, and then we'll have morning announcements. Block 3 will be a little bit longer because it will include a mask break. And then the lunch block is 50 minutes for class, but there's also some extra time in there for an outdoor mask break again. And then we will incorporate some of our SEL activities into the tutorial at the end of the day. Those usually are an advisory, but we won't let go of them completely because we think SEL is so important always, but especially right now.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Martin. Moving to Maple Shade, and we have a couple different examples here that Mr. Fredette may be able to walk us through.
So because we did such a great job mirroring a regular school day in our remote model, model when we come back to school hybrid will be the same schedule in school as it is now. It'll prevent confusion, disruptions, have continuity and consistency for what the students are doing now and the teachers. So this is a model third grade schedule that would be similar to fourth grade, except their specials would be at a different time and maybe some of their content would be at a different time. So we do a community circle morning meeting model and then go right into mathematics, have a movement break or a snack, ELA period with reading and writing, and then lunch and recess. And then we have in the afternoon for third grade a special, and then also some science and individualized passion projects for this particular grade level. So that's third and could be a fourth grade model depending on, but the actual time when they have their special would change for fourth grade. And then the next one is a fifth grade schedule, which is really similar to what your students are experiencing now at home. When they come back to school, morning meeting, then mathematics, then a special, have a movement break and a snack, then reading, social studies, lunch and recess, writing, science class, and then using our online personalized learning tools will still be a component of in-school learning, as well as if you're streaming in remotely with ST Math and iReady.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Fredette. I think our next one is looking at the grade 3 Mountain View hybrid schedule. And Ms. Santinella, should be able to walk us through this?
Sure. Similar to Mr. Fredette, our schedules will look very much the same as they do now. We actually had to coordinate our schedules to look pretty similar because we share specialist teachers. So similar to Maple Shade, this is a third grade schedule with the morning meeting in the morning, math, some independent work, a snack, ELA. Lunch, the times will probably be a little different because we will be doing lunch in the classroom and we will have to change the times of that now that we will be in the building, if that's what's decided on, and the specials are in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. I think the next one is a fourth grade schedule.
Fourth grade is also very similar to third, except as Mr. Fredette said, the specials are at a different time. So we will also work on the lunch schedule there.
Okay. And then the last one, I know that fifth grade in both buildings are departmentalized, so you're working in with different groupings. So this is a team of 2, I believe.
Right, so we have one team of 2 and one team of 3. Their schedules are pretty much similar between the different classrooms, but obviously classes, subject matter is at different times because the teachers are departmentalized, but also similar to third and fourth grade with their specials first thing in the morning.
Okay, and then anything you want to say about this, or is it basically the same?
It's basically the same. It's just the different individual classrooms. And again, lunch will have to change. The time will have to change.
Okay. And then Meadowbrook has a look at their draft hybrid. And I think Mrs. Dakin and Mrs. Lodi could probably speak to this and walk us through it.
Yeah, unfortunately for Mrs. Lodi, she is going to have to recreate the schedules for everyone because they're not going to be the same as they are now. And a lot of it has to do with our lunch and recess because of the number of the students that we have in the building. But I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Lodi so she can talk about this in more detail.
So the content of the day is really not going to change drastically, but what will change is going to be the order in which it happens and the way in which it happens. So one thing I do want to point out about this is as we have kids in person and students at home will be live streaming in, we're going to ask for people's patience as we transition between blocks of time. You're going to notice arrival time on the schedule is 8:50 to 9:05. Buses may be arriving a little bit late, so that may shift things around a little bit in the morning as we begin to settle into routines. Kids may be coming in back from recess time a little bit later. So we just ask that people be a little bit patient as we settle into a routine. We will get there, it just takes a little time at the beginning. The other thing is the lunch block needs to change and the specials times are going to change. That is because the way we have lunches scheduled right now is not feasible to accommodate within the building in order to properly staff and supervise lunch and recess times. And as you're building a school schedule, everything's kind of built around the lunch block. So that's going to cause all of the other blocks within the day to shift. The other big noticeable difference here is that time at the end of the day that we had currently built in for our online learning programs. That 2:40 to 3:15 time where students were working on ST Math and Lexia. Those are programs that we normally use during a regular school year. We had pulled them out and had them done at the end of the day. Those are now going to need to be integrated back into the math and literacy blocks respectively. So you're going to see the actual live instruction piece is actually going to go further into the day as those other pieces are absorbed into the major blocks. And then we are looking at a staggered dismissal and working on plans for how to do that and get everyone out the door safely at the end of the day.
All right, thank you. As you can see, all the schedules are following the basic school day that they're following now. There are some changes as people have presented within the day, but we're attempting to keep the structure so that whether our students are accessing class remotely or whether they're going to be in person, that they're all following the same structure and staying current with their teachers. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and allow people to ask questions and keep the discussion going about how we possibly expand in-person learning.
I have a few questions, Gordon.
Sure.
Wondering if the leadership team could describe how it's going to change, what it'll look like for those who decide to, if we do come back in, come into the building, so they'll be in the classroom, what that will look like. For those who are in the cohort that would be on their off weeks, so they're home watching the live stream, what that would look like, and also for the cohort that would decide to remain fully remote, if you could briefly describe those three perspectives, please.
Sure. I mean, I think the principals probably could give you the best insight in terms of what the in-person experience will be like. So I certainly would start there. Before I hand it off to them, one of the things that we are doing, and we talked about this at other meetings, is we had been working with our staff to look at how we do a good job balancing live streaming while also having students in front of us for in-person instruction. And we've ordered equipment. Some of it is starting to come in. Actually, I think Mr. Martin picked up some of the equipment that I'm showing on screen. So we're starting to get in the webcams and figuring out how we can utilize these for live streaming. And we've ordered extra monitors for our classes so that teachers can have on one monitor their students who are remote, similar to probably what you're looking at on your screen right now. And then on their computer, they would be able to manipulate some type of presentation, if that's what they're doing, that they can also put up on the screen for the in-person students, but share their screen as I just did with all of you for their remote students. And so as we get that equipment in, we're looking in January to provide support and professional development around how to utilize all this. our administrators are, as I said, Mr. Martin came to pick up some of the equipment so he can start to play with it. I've used the equipment in some of my staff meetings that when I've met with staff, just to see what that feels like, so that we can better answer questions and support our staff. But going back to the question you had about what the in-person experience would be like, certainly our principals and assistant principals could probably answer that best. Ms. Dakin, you want to start?
Yeah, in some ways, I think it's going to be a big change for our youngest age groups. We are so used to the kids coming together at tables, working together in centers and working collaboratively. A lot of small group work where the kids come during reading workshop, math workshop to the kidney table to work with the teachers. So we have, had to purchase additional storage units to get rid of all of the tables in the classroom. And the district was able to purchase about 500 individual student desks. So it is going to look very different. When you think about a typical kindergarten classroom, where you have a lot of the stations, it's going to be different because the kids are going to have to remain, 6 feet apart at their individual desks. So I do think that it's important, for families, especially when they're making their decisions, just to know what it looks like, that it is going to look, different. So I think that's an adjustment that some of the teachers are trying to kind of think through. They're already thinking of, and I know our teachers are amazing and creative, they're thinking of, okay, movement breaks, it'll be right in front of their desks, because we still have to maintain that distance and safety as well. Renee and I are trying to think very creatively about, some guidelines for recess and things like that. So we're not going to be able to use the cafeteria, so the lunch will be in the classrooms. We don't have enough spaces in the cafeteria to fit our kiddos. So we're probably going to have food delivered to the classrooms as well. The specials teachers will be coming into the classrooms instead of the kids, moving in the hallway. I know CDC and DESE has recommended it, us to limit as much of that transitioning throughout the hallway as possible. So those are just some things that, that we're, visualizing, and the teachers are thinking about, what's that going to look like in their classroom. So.
Mrs. Dakin, I wonder if you could touch on what the in-person learners in terms of use of Chromebooks, they're home now using iPads or Chromebooks. When they come in, what will that look like for those that are in the building at the time?
Yeah, so our kindergarten and first graders have the iPads and our second graders have the Chromebooks. So when the teachers are in the classroom, the live instruction, they're going to be teaching, the students are not going to be on their computers and working remotely. The teachers are going to be instructing them, but we are going to have live streaming in. I've spoken to our department heads. The teachers have been doing a great job with materials pick up and drop off. So they're kind of rethinking. So for example, if they're using manipulatives for a lesson in a math class, there's a few things. We're going to make sure that Friday before that the kiddos have their, packets that they need, the materials that they need, their manipulatives. So the kids at home can be doing the same lesson that the teacher is doing with the kids in the classroom. We also have virtual manipulatives. So we're trying to think in that vein where the students are also participating. We're thinking of having the screen on in the classroom as well, so that the kiddos in the classroom could see their classmates that are working home remotely, so that there is that kind of engagement.
Just to point out, though, there are going to be some exceptions to that. We do use online learning programs as part of our regular daily instruction. We always have. So the kids will be accessing the computer at points during the day to access programs like ST Math and Lexia. Those are critical programs, and I know that's the case at a lot of the other buildings as well. And something that I believe might have already been pointed out in situations where, for example, say the classroom teacher is considered a close contact and needs to quarantine, there may be a situation where the teacher is not present and is teaching remotely from home and someone else is supervising the kids in the classroom. So those are the types of situations we need to consider where students here in person in school may actually be logging into computers for different reasons.
And those are good points. And to add to that, I think you'll hear on, as teachers, our teachers have been using breakout rooms and creating small groups remotely. And so I think they would probably continue to do that as well, where the students who are in person can then really engage in a breakout room with the students who are home receiving the remote instruction. But I don't know if others want to add to what the in-person learning will look like.
I would like to add a few things, just so transparent and honest about what we're going into. So if you just want to go back to the journey a little bit of what happened in March when we had to do this really quickly and nobody really knew how to do remote instruction well at all. Then we got into a summer planning session and we jumped into the fall and we were completely prepared. So we sort of had that spring moment to figure it out and then refine it. We had a good planning session in the summer, a lot of them, and a lot of time to prepare. So we gave the district what it has today for a really great remote program. So that's brand new to us. That was brand new to us. So now hybrid teaching and learning is going to be brand new to us. So we don't have the luxury of an entire summer to plan and prepare. So one thing I just want to be pretty clear about that I'm putting forward heading into this for Maple Shade School is what the teachers know how to do right now really well is the remote teaching and learning through the Google platform. How the students stay connected as a classroom community all together is through the Google Classroom platform. So heading into the school year or the next part of our school year, hybrid, I'm going to provide the teachers with a lot of latitude to start their hybrid journey with what they know how to do right now and keeping their classroom connected right now through the Google platform, utilizing a lot of the technological tools that we've learned how to utilize, like manipulative tools, that are through Braining Camp and quizzes and Clever and Google Documents and Classroom and breakout sessions for the students that are remote and opting out to connect with their peers in class in small groups. There's many, many tools that we use that we're becoming very, very good at that we will continue to use in the classroom. And before we start to change a lot into the hybrid model, with in-person and streaming in instruction, we want to really go through a process to learn how to do it well all over again for the first time, something new. So I don't want to make a lot of drastic changes that I don't know exactly how to lead really well. And I'm going to rely on the teachers to start doing the school year hybrid in a way that they know how to do really well, and then make adjustments and changes as they go for incorporating less screen time in the in-person model with the streaming in components, knowing how they work, knowing how the camera works, the microphone works, the additional monitor works, because those are all new components for us that we have to learn how to do and utilize to the best of our ability for the students to continue learning. So I did want to be transparent about how we plan on kicking off the January hybrid model.
We have other thoughts from secondary level?
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit to talk about what things might look like at the high school. I think in terms of the learning, you're going to see similarities to what you heard some of the other schools talk about. We are talking about synchronous learning, so our students at home are going to be engaging in the same materials as the kids who are in person. I think some of the differences you're going to see are obviously going to be in some of the things that are going to be happening at the high school that are in person. It'll be things like arrival times. We're going to be opening the doors shortly before the school day actually begins, so we're going to have to work on transitions there. When the day ends, outside of the kids who might be getting some additional help from teachers, we are going to be making sure that everybody leaves the school, so we have the opportunity to clean and sanitize. During the course of the school day, we're going to keep kids moving through transition times. In terms of lunches, we are going to be utilizing the cafeterias. We do have that space identified, and we do feel that we can run them down there, but we are going to have the assigned seating similar to, I know what other high schools in the area are doing. So there are going to be those restrictions that are going to be in place that are going to be a little different than what people have experienced in the past, but we do feel like we can do this safely and put quality academic programming into place. What I keep telling people is we're operating in 3 layers. That top layer is everything we're doing is going to go through the lens of safety. From there, then we go into the academic piece, and in the last piece, wherever we can fit in those social interactions to make sure that the kids still enjoy that experience. When we can make it enjoyable, we're going to work on that, but it's got to go through that lens of safety first, academics, and then that social piece, and that's what we've just been pushing from day one.
Yeah, and I think at the middle school it's similar. The live streaming, Mr. Martin will work with teachers. He already is, and we'll do it as well as it can be done. I actually think that the in-person learners, I think teachers will, even though their rooms are going to be set up very differently, they're very separate from their kids. Their kids are 6 feet away from each other. So it's going to feel different, but I think that natural ability to instruct those in front of you will come back quickly. The live streaming will be the biggest challenge because live streaming is different than what we're doing now. What we're doing now is live and it is streaming, but it is completely focused on this. So the live streaming, just going to be a skill that we're all going to have to develop, because it's as if you were in this meeting right now, but then you were also talking to 14 people off to the side. There's no way you'd be as focused on your computer as you are because we're just in this meeting remotely the way we are. So, our teachers are definitely going to be able to work through all of it. It's like Mr. Fredette said, it's going to take some time. Like Miss Lodi said, our math, science, and social studies curriculums are all web-based. And that's not even including iReady and Lexia and all the other things we do. And our English curriculum is web-based as well. It's just in Google Classroom. So it's not that screens are going to disappear. We were already moving to web-based curriculum before this, but just teachers will be handling a lot, and they'll step up. They'll be able to do it, but it's certainly not going to be easy. And it's definitely going to be very different than what is being experienced right now.
And to the point that I think everyone's made, it's got to go, and Mr. Page said it, go through safety first. And one of the things that a few people have mentioned is that, and especially at lunch, which will be a new experience, having assigned seats at lunch. We're going to need to have assigned seats in all classrooms so that we have an idea of where people are, because we know that at some point we will be needing to identify close contacts and possible quarantining and so forth. So that's going to be really important, along with, hallway procedures and so forth. Any other thoughts? One thing I didn't mention, as I have Dr. Welsh directly in front of me here, our cohort D students that have already been coming in predominantly every day, they are going to continue in their programs and coming in on a daily basis. And certainly our MTSS teams, as we're looking to continue to support and check in, they're already active, and they've been helping us increase our in-person learning. And so we're going to keep that going so that we make sure that we're not losing students and having students suffer emotionally or any undue stress. Final thoughts? I didn't get everybody speaking. Ms. Santinelli, go ahead.
I just wanted to add 2 things about specials that will affect both Maple Shade and Mountain View. As our parents know, our art is not living around here. So Mr. Fredette and I discussed today that when he is teaching, we will probably be the ones covering the classrooms so that the teachers receive their prep time for the day. Also, we have to look at what our music program and our band program will look like, because currently they are functioning as they normally would in school, but there are still restrictions in place by the Department of Ed and Department of Public Health with regards to singing and to blowing into instruments. So those are two areas that we are also going to have to work on over the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you. Other final thoughts that maybe we missed as we were talking about the transition and what the experience in school might be like? No? Okay, Mr. Thompson, do we answer all of the question that you had, or do we miss anything?
No, on that question, certainly. The other question I wanted to ask is about teachers. We touched on schedules. Some might change a little bit. Most of them will remain close to similar to what they are now. What can parents and students expect in terms of the teachers they expect to have now and going forward in terms of scheduling and changing models?
In the middle school, that all depends on leaves of absence. We won't have to just arbitrarily make changes, or there doesn't seem to be a push to create a full remote school the way Agawam has, which could change schedules. So it'll just depend on which teachers need a leave of absence for safety's sake, and then we'll have to post and replace those positions.
We're beginning to meet with teachers that may be seeking a leave of absence and working through that, and anywhere that we can be creative with our staff, we certainly will, so that we can support them and support our students.
Thank you. And one other thing that a few people have asked me about, for families and students that decide to perhaps remain remote if we do change to a hybrid model, we had talked originally about an opportunity for them to switch learning models, perhaps on a semester basis, not necessarily for an answer today, but an answer soon if we could collectively think about it. If we were to have a hybrid model that has some more flexibility than a full-in would have, and we are live streaming, I would ask that you all consider that perhaps we could look at offering the opportunity for those that choose a remote model to change their decision, perhaps on a monthly basis, maybe on the first of the month or the first school day of the month, just so that we give the opportunity, you know, for those students that are more hesitant right now to say we don't necessarily want to wait a full semester, so maybe we could look at a month, you know, once a month option. But I leave that one out there for discussion within the next few days or so.
And I think it's going to be important as we look at the schedules that we're putting together for the individual students, you know, looking at that, what are the different cohorts looking like? It's harder, say, at the secondary level, where you're going to try to balance classes, and that might be where you can add different students if the alphabetic split of the cohorts does not sort of even out some of those classes. But I think everybody's going to have to sort of put this together and look at how it's operating to figure out that next step of how we can increase students. Other thoughts?
Any other questions or thoughts from the committee?
I have a question. Ooh, did I cut
Go ahead,
somebody off?
Sarah. Yeah. Nope, go.
Oh, I had a question about what we just saw was all relative to the hybrid model. So in terms of thinking about putting kids into cohorts, has there been consideration made for a fully in-person return? So therefore you have one cohort that is coming to school 5 days a week, and then you have the other cohort that is remaining remote, since that remains an option for families. Because I just haven't heard any conversation about that. It's solely been about the hybrid return. And looking at our percentages, we have pretty split percentages at each one of the sites relative to how many families are actually opting into some form of an in-person instructional model.
And I think obviously each building can speak to that probably more specifically for how they're scheduling. But we did give thought and start to set up classrooms and see what we could actually sort of maximize at the 6-foot distance and allowing space for the teacher in each of the classrooms, as we did it actually in the summer, but then we did it again as we started this planning process. And we were averaging anywhere from, say, 12 desks to 14 desks, depending on the classrooms. The challenging piece is, and I know this is certainly for the secondary schools, and probably more specifically the high school, is as they change their semester, they pick up, I want to say 40 or 50 sections that are 25 or more. Is that accurate, Mr. Page and Mr. Wright?
Yes. Yeah. Do you want me to speak a little bit about the high school in terms of where we would be at with a full in-person return?
Sure.
Yeah. So we talked this through. We played out some different schedules with different students. For some of our students, if we did opt for a full in-person program, especially talking with term 3 with the opt-in numbers that we have, for some of our students, numbers would work without conflict. But then there'd be other students who would already exceed our maximum capacity for our classes based on spacing requirements. The other thing we want to keep in mind is we do have a lot of families who are reaching out to us who are on the fence. They're unsure of which model they want to opt with. Obviously, you can see we have about 40% who are opting out now, but a lot of them have expressed interest about returning at a later point in the year if the numbers were to decrease. So I think our concern would be is if not only are we having difficulties with certain rosters in balancing some of those classes, but also if you return more students later, where it jumps from 60% in person to 70% in person, meeting that 6-foot spacing requirement for our classes might prove pretty difficult. We're averaging about 12 to potentially a 14 max number of students per classroom in terms of meeting that 6-foot spacing. We already have rosters, if you put all the hybrids into certain classes, at 16, 17, 18. Some of them are even pushing 19 or 20. So if you're opting more in, it could get pretty difficult.
Other specifics at the different schools?
Can you clarify that though, Mr. Page? Could get difficult or is currently difficult? Because when I try to
Some
think
rosters,
about,
I would say, some rosters are currently difficult. We do have about 60 rosters right now for second semester with an average of 25 students or more. And, you know, some of those are around 30 with some of those rosters of kids opting in. It's not like a clean break of, you know, 60% across the board in every single class. Some classes it's hit or miss, where you might only have, let's say, 40 or 50% opting in, but other classes you already have 70, 80% opting back in. You know, it's just really spread.
Ms. Lodi?
I took last night all of the information that we had and sat down with actual class rosters and started breaking that information down to look at what it would be like in each individual classroom. And we're seeing the same thing, I think, probably at all of our schools, but certainly the same as the high school, where we might have one class where almost everybody has opted to come back in person. And so we're maxed out in both of our cohorts where we have, you know, because we're including in the hybrid model, we're including that cohort D. Those kids are in person every day. We have some classes where we have 12 in cohort A and 10 in cohort B, which is fairly well maxed out right now. And we have other classes where that number is really low. So as Mr. Page said, that percentage that you're looking at across the whole school is very unevenly distributed between classrooms, even within a single grade level. So if we were, at least at Meadowbrook, if we were to come back fully in person right now, that would involve changing homeroom classes in order to accommodate. And personally, I feel that would be very challenging for folks at this time of the year. In some cases, it would be moving a significant number of students out of one room into another class or into 3 or 4 other classes to balance out numbers in order to fit.
Other,
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question. So then would you try to split each classroom? So it wouldn't be just, I don't know, A through L is cohort A and the rest is cohort B? Would that make it easier for the kids and the teachers?
I'm not sure I understand what you're asking. I'm sorry.
So I wasn't sure if the cohorts, cohort A and B, it's an even split. Like if their last names are A through L, then you're always in cohort A and the rest are in cohort B.
from
So,
a district standpoint, that's what we started with. But I think it changes at each school whether you get that even distribution.
okay.
And honestly, we started, we were planning for a potential hybrid. We were planning for every eventuality over the summer. And when I had originally done our class lists, we scrapped them all and redid them, at least at Meadowbrook, based on that A through LE and LI through Z. And we were very well balanced at the start of the year. But things have shifted significantly since then, where we've had new students come into the district, we've had others leave. There are some classrooms where that split works perfectly and we have exactly the same number of kids in each cohort, and there are other classes where it's a little bit uneven. I really just started playing with those numbers last night because we were still getting phone calls last night as to parents' responses to the survey. So we haven't had a lot of time to sit with those actual lists at this point.
So, oh, go ahead, Antonella. I can wait for
No, go
a
ahead.
follow-up. I guess what I was going to say next then is, if we're already looking at some schools where we're seeing 60% of our student population wanting to come back, and we're saying that we can't fit given the current logistics, then that doesn't necessarily evoke a sense of confidence from me that at some point this year we would be able to return to a form of in-person model. So, or a fully in-person model rather, excuse me. So then what are we doing? What are we doing to ensure that we can get our kids back in a fully in-person model if at 60% we can't achieve that?
You're not going to be able to keep the safety protocols in place and bring in the entire enrollment. I'm not sure that other than certain grade levels, any district across the Commonwealth is doing that. They've gone into a hybrid model, and so our hope would be if more people are deciding to come in person, we would have to add them to the hybrid, or seek other space. And we don't necessarily have that kind of space across the town, nor do we have the additional staffing to do that.
Yeah, Sarah, really for that to go away, or the opportunity to come in full, we would have the 6 foot distance requirement would have to no longer be required, based on science. DESE currently has it at 3 feet, which they're on an island by themselves. DPH, CDC both use 6 feet as the recommended distance. So that's what we're working with. And until both of those agencies change that, I don't see us able to come in fully.
And DESE actually, in their guidance, they say you can go 3 to 6 unless you're eating or unmasked. So any mask break, you would have to break the rooms. If you packed it in at 3 feet, you would have to take your mask break elsewhere, spread the people out, and you wouldn't be able to eat. That would have to also happen elsewhere. So most districts with whom we spoke this summer have stayed 6 feet and or further. They haven't come to the 3 foot. And I don't believe there's any in the LPVC that are going to a 3 foot distance at any time. Actually, most of the districts, with the exception of Hammond, Wilbraham, I think right now in the LPVC are remote, and will be remote through the holidays, I believe.
I do have one other question. When I look at the data spread that was provided in terms of the responses, and it isolated district identified cohort D, there's no criteria that we've received as a school committee by which we are privy to knowing what identifies a student. for being opted into cohort D. And we did hear families speak of that this evening. And I would make note that there is a large discrepancy among the sites in terms of students who are identified as members of that cohort. So I'm just curious about that.
Sure. If you were to look at the DESE guidance from July 9th, you would see that it was spelled out very clearly. And that guidance specifically references various aspects of a student's IEP, and as well as some other ancillary factors. So the criteria for originally bringing students in for cohort D, which would be the 106 students that we brought in at the beginning of the school year, mirrored what DESE recommended on July 9th. In some cases, other schools expanded that based upon the individual needs of individual students and how they presented themselves. One of the reasons for discrepancies among the schools has to do with the fact that we don't have identical programs in every school. And so as a result of that, you wouldn't have an even number of students who met the DESE criteria from July 9th. You know, in some of our schools, we have programs that mirror the population of students who have specific IEPs, and that varies from year to year based upon just the demographics of our community. So using the DESE criteria, you would have an uneven array, if you will, of students coming in because we don't have similar programs. We only have 5 schools, and so some of those are dispersed throughout the district.
I guess as a follow-up too, oh, sorry, Gordon, go ahead.
I was just going to say, additionally, in our summer planning, as we got the criteria for students with significant and complex needs and how we transition or offer in-person learning for those students, we reached out to first by letter to all the families, and then a second letter in late July. One was in the middle of July, one was in late July. And then anyone we had not heard from, we called and gave them the option. Some of our families opted to remain remote rather than come in for in-person learning. And so there we also would have sort of an uneven spread, if you will. Then we continued to utilize the DESE guidelines going beyond just students with significant and complex needs, and really honed in on, with our MTSS teams, students that were struggling with remote instruction. And that's where we started to increase working with families that our schools were connected to and communicating with.
And I guess that's where my question is more pointed. I understand the DESE guidance, but I've heard multiple times as we've met on these sessions about the increased opportunities for students to return based on MTSS teams engaging in data conversations and looking at the needs of students. So when I sit and I look at data, that's telling me that in some cases upwards of 60%, almost 80% of a building wants to come back, and yet sometimes as low as 2% have been identified as cohort D. That speaks to a discrepancy for me in terms of what families are potentially identifying as a reason why they want their child back in person, and what we're identifying as a district for why kids are or aren't in person. And I'm just trying to get a better understanding on that, because when you look at a range of 2 to 9% of any given school's population returning fully in person, and you look at a range of 60 to 76% of families saying their children need this, I can't reconcile those numbers in a way that makes sense to me. And then to be able to not substantiate a version of a fully in-person instructional model this academic year. So I'm trying to really understand the numbers that we're being presented with as a committee.
I think, well, 2 things. One, we had started in a predominantly remote instructional model. And so the percentages originally were based on, just as Dr. Wells said and I said, the DESE criteria. And then as we are looking to plan now for a transition to expanding in-person learning, we're gathering information from all our families, where each building, their MTSS teams are looking at how students are engaging and how they were doing academically, emotionally, and socially. And that's a slower process, and obviously a questionnaire that goes out broadly and asks, would you be interested in an in-person model, be it hybrid or in full, or would you be interested in remaining remote?
I would also just want to, mention that initially when we applied the DESE guidance, we had a significant number of families that we contacted who declined and felt that their child would be safer learning through a remote model. Through various outreach in different schools, we have increased the numbers of the students that were coming in, but all of that was individually determined based upon individual factors relative to the student, but also relative to IEPs and IEP grids. The DESE guidance was very specific relative to students with significant and complex needs, but it was a little bit broader in terms of how that might be expanded. So we followed what we were given on July 9th, and that was how we formed our original group, a group of students. But again, the demographics in each building, I think, speak to some of those differences. And, other than, providing confidential information about specific students, I think it's important to just note that we implemented the guidance from July 9th.
Yeah, and I'm not asking for confidential information. I'm asking for criteria by which we're making decisions to determine how students are placed in cohort D. Because if we're going to go forward with some form of an in-person instructional model, I think it's fair for everyone involved to know what qualifies a student to have the opportunity to return 5 days in person and what doesn't. Because again, we are looking at discrepancies currently of upwards of 35 students. There's discrepancies that are that large between our buildings, from 2 to almost 10%. So I'm not asking for confidential information. I'm asking what criteria are the MTSS teams using to determine which families are offered the opportunity for 5 days of in-person instruction and which families aren't. Because if that's their only opportunity to return, then I think we need to have that information at the table as we're making considerations for the instructional model moving forward.
Sure.
So I can only speak to, the special, I'm not working with the MTSS teams, but I don't know if any of the principals could chime in about that. Frank, I see you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I can just chime in quickly. We've been talking with both Superintendent Smith and the other administrators as a team over the last couple of weeks about different ways to increase that cohort D group as we start to identify where the numbers are for a potential hybrid return and balance out the cohort A and the cohort B and see if there's any of those kids who might be able to potentially come in every day. The criteria that we're looking at is that first tier. We might start looking at those students who are already on IEPs, might be more in an inclusion, receiving inclusion services. Going from there, looking at students who get ELL services, potential students who might have 504s. Our next level of potential students who might be coming in might be something like a student who is failing one or multiple classes. Then from there, we're looking at students who might have attendance issues, and just working our way through a progression that we've outlined in order to best meet the needs of the kids. So what you might see what the cohort D right now is a number. I see it as a number in time, not something that's going to be static through June.
Yeah, if I could, I'll just add, we have been strategizing with particularly our special ed team and our guidance team to identify some students. We didn't aggressively make those moves yet, which maybe we should have. We were thinking that the vote would come and that from there we would have a cleaner picture of exactly who we're inviting into that cohort. So the special ed liaisons are already digging into the kids who have chosen to come full remote, and we're really reviewing those items as a progression. So if a student chooses to stay remote, we would view adding them to cohort A or B as a slight gradual progression of support. And then if they're in A or B, viewing cohort D as a progression of support as well. So We do have a considerable number of students that we'd be looking to invite into cohort D. We just haven't, we haven't sent those invitations yet at this point.
To be real plain and simple about it, Sarah, you need staff to have a cohort D. And when you vote as a school committee to have a remote program, which I supported 100%, it was the right decision. You voted for every teacher to work remotely with students remotely in a pandemic to be safe. The teachers that have come in willingly, without a problem, to be part of cohort D and to work with students of severe or functional academic or autism or behavior intervention programs, and the paraprofessionals and the related service providers has been remarkable. So then when an MTSS team meets, which I'm part of those meetings on a monthly basis, and we make decisions to bring students back into school, it doesn't work for every student to just be added to our severe needs program or our functional academics program. The spacing isn't there, the programming isn't there, what is provided for students of a severe needs or functional academic profile is not necessarily what's provided to a student where remote learning just isn't going well for them. So then we have to look at other critical staffing solutions where we can bring a child into school, maybe for some days during the week, maybe for half days during the week, maybe with supervision of a paraprofessional, maybe with a staff member that comes to school to work remotely and have a student sitting with them just to supervise them and not necessarily even provide direct instruction, just to provide them with an environment where there's a responsible adult in our building to take care of them. Those are the decisions that we're making right now. The criteria has basically been the qualified analysis of professionals that work with kids, knowing what's going on at home, where parents may be working and not even available to them, or parents may speak another language and can't help them, or they're working out of dad's garage, or they're working out of an office building. So then we make decisions to bring them in for the maximum amount of time during the week just to supervise. We're not necessarily providing them with a direct teacher to help them, but we're providing them with a safer, better environment and those decisions are made for kids because it's hard at home. The other kids that don't have it that hard at home, where they do have responsible adults and they have a bedroom or a living room or a quiet space to work out of, but remote learning just for many reasons still isn't going that well for that student. We haven't been quickly apt or making a quicker decision to bring them in as compared to other situations. But the MTSS team looks at qualified analysis of the student experience, not necessarily a number on a page. And that's the best we could do in this moment. That's absolutely the best we can do in this moment. I don't have a real clear-cut, streamlined system to place a cohort D student into another program that's fully staffed, like my current program is, according to the guidelines that were communicated to us by our pupil services director over the summer. And that's kind of a plain and simple answer.
And I just think that what is quote unquote cohort D right now, like at my school, we have 3 days a week where we have many different students, not many, but we have a good number of students coming in to work in different ways in our school. That's different from what is cohort D if we start hybrid on January 19th. And I think to define cohort D as of January 19th, it's a combination of what Mr. Page said, which is, IEPs, 504s, at-risk in classes, attendance issues. And then it's combined with what Mr. Thompson said, which is while maintaining the social distance rules, right? So I know all 5 principals are going to want to quote unquote maximize cohort D, but they have to maximize it within what they can fit with 6 feet of distance. So that's where we would work through, let's get as many IEP students coming as in cohort D as possible. Let's work on some 504 students. Let's work at kids struggling with their iReady data. Let's work on kids in their Panorama SEL surveys that are demonstrating that they're having a lot of personal challenges at home. There's more data than ever to look at, but it all has to fit in the classroom as well. And so I think the main thing is what I said in the beginning, like what cohort D is at my school today is very different from what cohort D is at my school January 19th. I spent 4.5 hours today with over 20 kids in my library. When I have 250 kids in the building, I'm not monitoring. I can't monitor kids in my library, right? So like it just, everything changes when the model changes, and then we build cohort D from there.
I think the way we would probably summarize that, if we're talking about cohort D, you know, it's been always identified as this group up until this point, OG students who have high and complex needs. Right now we're trying to shift that thinking of their needs, you know. So like Dr. Allen said, and Mr. Fredette said, other people were saying, we're going to identify areas where those numbers are going to grow, and we're going to try to meet those needs for those kids.
Just a question that if we do get back to a hybrid model, what can we do as a school committee to help all you help our staff? I know our staff is top priority. They're doing a fantastic job remotely. We're asking them now to potentially completely change how they're instructing. What else can we do? How do we support you all and all of them? And sorry, my voice is very slow.
Greg, I would just model patience as much as you can as we once again rebuild what education looks like. I think the more that we're able to model for the public what patience looks like, I think that it will really support our teachers in getting their confidence and quelling any anxiety that they might be having coming back into the building and adopting a new model of learning during a pandemic.
Greg, I would just say, I think I've witnessed your support firsthand. I see you and other members of the school committee frequently coming through student services, and we always stop and talk. And I can certainly say that your support is felt. I don't know how you might do it, Greg, but finding staff, finding bodies, finding people, people to cover the leaves of absence, people to cover just the other needs we're going to have, splitting kids into smaller groups. I'm not sure how you can do that, but that's probably, that's definitely one of our top 3 needs.
And I also think just that gift of time for teachers to use with planning. We do have some pilots going on in our building right now. One of our teachers in the transition room, she does have kiddos in front of her, where there's in-person instruction. And then she has 2 students that are, learning through live streaming right now. And we're very appreciative that we were able to switch that PD day, I believe, to the 15th, right, Gordon? And I think that that's right now what the teachers need. They need that gift of time. We can give them that time for the shift, for PD, and just like Connor said, patience as well.
Greg, I would just like to say that I've gotten nothing but complimentary emails and supportive emails from my parents at Mountain View since all of this has started. And I know this is a very controversial topic, and it's gotten a little heated in some of the comments. So I would just hope that parents and the community members recognize how hard all of the teachers and staff have been working. And I'm very proud of what I've seen happening. So I just want everyone to keep that in mind. Although you may not like what happens tonight or happens in the future, the teachers are doing their best and they want the kids in front of them. And I just like everyone to remember that.
And I would, and I think the school committee does and understands how hard our staff's working, but I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Thompson. One thing though I did want to recognize is how many parents, regardless of what side or perspective they were offering in the public comment, everyone was very appreciative of what the teachers have done. But just to give you stats that DESE now is creating, because they changed sort of the parameters, they had put out a survey of all districts around student learning time, but more importantly, synchronous learning time. And they've now put parameters on it, which were not part of their guidance in the summer, as to how many hours over a 2-week period districts should have of synchronous learning time. And so a remote district such as ourselves has to have 40 hours over a 2-week period. And a district that is hybrid has to have 35. So there's a interesting, not a level playing field, but regardless of what they've thrown at us, synchronous learning was something that we valued, all of you valued, and our teachers have done an incredible job providing it in a remote model. And so every district received a status report, and our status is that we were averaging across the district 51 synchronous hours. And I think, you know, the models and the drafts of schedules that we put together in basically a week's time, as we were still pulling numbers from the questionnaire, we're trying to model and mirror that. You know, that we want to keep that synchronous learning time. It's something we value. And I think that the panel of 7 individuals from DESE during the audit were pretty surprised of how much synchronous learning time. I think not only surprised, but maybe even skeptical. And so it's really because of who we have throughout the district that's been able to make happen. And all of you are part of that. There's no way we could have gotten it off the ground back in late August and September without all of your support.
One other thing I'd like to mention in an effort to walk the walk and support our staff, if we do return to more in-person learning, this committee has intentions of being in person in our meetings, but again, fully masked, social distancing. Currently, as you can see by the lights behind me and the similar color walls, many of us are already in the building, but we take advantage of the fact that we have multiple offices so we can spread out. But we don't want to appear hypocritical, and if we do return to more in-person learning, we will have just like they do in the classrooms. Okay, do we have any further other comments, either from the leadership team or from the committee? Questions?
Greg, I'd just like to thank you for asking that question about support. It means a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Welch, and you know, certainly we've been working very closely together, all of us, but you and I specifically throughout the last couple of months, and I know the hours that the leadership team is putting in. Gordon and Pam in this office are always on the move, and the staff, we completely recognize. I believe that the staff's hit it out of the park. What we've asked of them so far, and if we do choose to change the model, we're going to ask them to do their very best, and we know that they'll rise to the challenge, and we understand the difficulties of it, but we're all in this together, and so are the families. We've asked a lot of the families, and they've stepped up too. So I'm encouraged by all the support that we're all getting, and we're going to do well by these students. I promise you that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you, leadership team, all of you, for all your time this evening. A long night after a long day of work, I'm sure. And thanks so very much for your information this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, how would folks of the committee like to proceed at this time?
I kind of want to say just a couple things. I think I'm ready, to vote on it, but I don't want to vote on this without saying how I feel, because I think it's important. 100% respect to our staff and to our families for putting up with what they've had to put up with. As I make this vote, I have worked in a school district, in a school, and I have pivoted quite a bit. I started off 2 weeks because the teacher was out in quarantine. I moved into doing this. I go and my student became remote. I walk around with a kid on a computer screen. I take them to classes when I help out. I'm willing to do it. I know our staff is willing to do it. It's not necessarily things that that are in my contract to do, but it's that kind of a thing. And we would never expect people to, go way beyond that. The day those students walked into the building was beautiful. And we were concerned and we were nervous and we were, I says, I think anybody would be, but those kids came in and I gotta say, they did what they were supposed to do. They even looked afraid, but they're not afraid anymore. You know what I mean? I think that we put a lot of our fears on our kids and we can't be stupid. We have to be careful. But at the same time, those kids are having as normal as they can have right now. And there is the conversations between the kids and it's a different vibe, but it's still happy because there's children in the school. That said, I mean, you have to change a lot, and it won't be easy if we vote to go hybrid, but I also think that it's not a bad thing, and I think it could be a little bit scary at first, but as the school district that I have been in has evolved, and they have really evolved a lot. They've made some good changes, and I think that we're already there. We're at that point. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate everything our administration has done, everything our parents have done, everything our teachers have done. And I just want to let you know, it's not as bad. It's not horrible. It was heart-filling. So that's what I got to say.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments from the committee?
Yeah, I think when I voted back in August for a fully remote model, it was based in part on trying to provide the most equitable educational experience for students across this district. And at that moment in time, we didn't have the opportunity to bring kids back fully in person. And the opportunity for a hybrid model that was presented didn't provide enough access for students who are opting to stay remote to have instruction by East Long Meadow Public School teachers. So that did not appear to be equitable at that moment in time. However, as we look to where we are now, and we look at the data we're receiving from families and hearing from families who are saying that a remote model is not working for their child, then I can't hang my hat on that, so to speak. I can't say that we are continuing to provide an equitable experience because it's not working for all. And we need to ensure that if we are, a district that is priding itself on achievement and accountability and providing our students with what they need both academically and social and emotionally, then we have to listen to what we're hearing from the families who represent the student voice and from the members of the pediatricians, the mental health workers who have come forward to say that for some, this is not the model that is working, and that we really have to take all those points into consideration as we think about how we move forward for our district. And undoubtedly, I think tonight reiterated that point that this is a very contentious conversation and people have their opinions based on their current situation. But we are charged with making a decision that benefits the most members of our school community as we possibly can. So I think we've done a tremendous job in terms of increasing our capacity to live stream, to increasing our capacity to provide educators with the materials they need, whether it be desks or PPE. I think Pam has done a tremendous job expending the funds that we've been allocated to ensure that we are providing everyone, students, nurses, custodians, staff, regardless of what role you're playing in East Long Meadow Public Schools, you have what you need. And I think that that doesn't go unnoticed. You know, I think so many members of this team have engaged in ongoing negotiations with the ELEA, meetings with different parent groups, and you know, we need to take all of that into consideration as we think about how we maximize the remainder of the academic year, and that needs to really be at the forefront as we embark on this decision-making process.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Anyone else? Okay, so we are, I believe, fully informed and have had certainly lengthy discussions. Is there anyone who would like to make a motion in terms of perhaps changing the model of instruction for the district?
I guess that's a point of clarification for me, Greg.
Yep.
What options do we have in front of us? Because it appears to me like we're back to where we were in August, where we don't necessarily have a full in-person option that we're capable of managing as a district. And I want to be clear before I myself make a motion.
Yeah, no, and I would agree with that, Sarah. So the only three options that we have are to continue the model that we have now, which is a remote model with some in-person instruction, but not drastically increasing that. The second would be the hybrid model that's been outlined this evening to bring more in-person learners in. That schedule that we've developed is a 5-day in, 5-day out period for those that are coming in, and then live stream for those that are home. The third is the fully back in, and that would be allowing instruction to those that want to come in every day, all day. But based on the numbers of families that responded to the question that when we are able to come back in, will you plan on sending your student in? I believe, and Gordon certainly has spoken to this and the leadership team too, that we can't do it right now based on that 6 feet. We can't get them in. Even at the 60% numbers, it would be pressing to get them in safely. So they're all options we can vote on this evening, but I would say only 2 of them are viable at this point. Gordon, is that a fair assessment? Would you agree with that?
I would agree. Unfortunately, we can't, with putting the safety protocols in place, we can't offer an option where we bring all 2,400 or so students back.
And we were clear with DESE on that, both in our in-person, Zoom meeting with DESE and also with our letters to DESE, that we would have trouble getting our students in fully up until and when they're able to say that it is safe scientifically to not mandate the 6 feet distance. That day will come. Go ahead.
But to clarify, 65% of our district wants to return, not the full 2,398 that was just stated. 65% of that number wants to return, and that's what I'm clarifying. There is not the capacity.
But I think the motion could also include the option to remain remote, just so that that's clear.
Well, by law, we have to maintain that. That's
right. But I think the motion, just to make it clear, should state the option to remain remote is still there.
When you say remain remote, you mean for students to opt out of a hybrid model, to stay home fully remote. We have to offer that in any of the models. But certainly we could state that within the motion.
Right. I just, my point is it needs to be stated so that it's clear.
Right.
Yeah,
Sarah, and I think I've demonstrated that I've been a big proponent of the full in, and I've been pushing hard to get to that point. I came to the realization once families responded and administrators were able to start putting actual names in rosters in classrooms that it's not feasible yet to go fully
Yeah,
in.
I still I struggle to reconcile that in terms of numbers. I struggle to reconcile how across 5 sites with about 1,500 kids wanting to come in,
Yeah.
that if we were to divide them up, that's 300 kids per building. I mean, we have buildings that hold upwards of 800 students. So
Not at 6 feet apart, though.
yeah,
I
but
also would
800
like
kids
to-
isn't at 6 feet apart. I'm talking about 300
Sarah,
kids.
if you want to walk through the buildings, we can go through the classrooms. I'm happy to do that based on the rosters. I'm just telling you, it doesn't fit. We tried. I promise you that.
I understand
My
that.
also, if
What's
I
that?
may,
I'm sorry.
one of my concerns about going full in is that if we have students who are on the edge and they've chosen to go fully remote, that then they will not have the opportunity to potentially come back into the schools at all. Or we're going to have to pivot again and go from full in to going into a hybrid where we go half and half. And I don't know if we want to make any more changes than we have to moving forward. I mean, I think it should be hybrid with the remote option and then move forward. And that hybrid option would allow us to let more kids out of that remote world as their families have comfort with it. That's why, because I know I wanted to be fully in too. I thought if the numbers are right, I think we should be fully in. But, you know, we really do need to, I think we really do need to make space and make sure that we have space for students and also that group D kids, because, you know, you could just have a student that's in there and you might say even hybrid and you're going to realize, wow, this child really needs to be in here every day of the week. And then we've got to make room for that too. Something we've missed because they've been remote. So.
Okay, my ultimate goal is to see everybody full in as well. But when I looked at all the numbers and I had the opportunity to visit a couple of classrooms at Mountain View, and I saw what it physically looked like, and that's what I wanted to see. I realized that at this point, until that 6-foot distance rule is relaxed, it's really going to be difficult in some instances to bring them back full in. In my mind, the hybrid model that is being presented is the next step. And then we continue to work towards the full in.
I also think that we definitely want to bring our kids back the safest way. And they're going to have to learn new protocols with coming into the building and transitioning. And they're going to have to learn all of these new routines going in too. So.
Okay, it feels to me like we're just about ready for a motion.
I
If no one
tried to
else has
scribble
anything else.
something unless somebody has something better.
Yeah, no, Beth, yeah, please.
All right, so when I throw it out there, I move we begin a hybrid model of education as presented, along with a remote option for families as of January 19th. But should we put something in there about numbers of COVID or anything, or just leave it like that?
Yeah, I would just leave it like that. That's a good
I think
motion.
it would make sense though, just to at least acknowledge that you're going to want to look at local health data like we've been doing.
That's a good point. Thank you, Gordon. And to that extent, I would leave Beth's motion where it is, but I would acknowledge that between now and January 19th, we will continue to monitor the data and we will continue to monitor transmission within schools. If the governor happens to say at any point that we have to go remote, then we're going to have to make that pivot too. So yes, we will continue daily to look at these statistics. We'll have our health department help us with those things. And so we'll acknowledge that even though now we're planning on January 19th as a return to a hybrid model for all grades, it's subject to conditions on the ground as we get closer, because none of us really know what to expect. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. So a motion has been made by Beth.
I'll second it.
It's seconded by Bill. Any discussion? Hearing none, I would ask all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. That motion carries 5-0. So we will continue to plan to we have created it, but to move into a hybrid learning model where students will come back in all grades 5 days in, 5 days out. Families will have now and always a chance to keep their students home to learn remotely. And as I said, we're subject to conditions as we get closer to the January 19th date. The other couple things I just wanted to point out again, it was said earlier, as we move more students into in-person learning, we need families to be ready to pivot back to a fully remote. We're seeing other districts having to do that. So as long as families are aware that that could happen at any time, then they'll have time to prepare for that. Also, Mr. Smith and I have spoke about doing another LCAP video where we can talk about what students might expect in a hybrid model, what the classrooms may look like, and we could get into a little more detail as we get closer so that students and families are comfortable with what to expect as they come back into the buildings.
I think that's a great idea.
It is.
But
And I know the hybrid doesn't, I'm sorry, Bill. Go.
No, now we have to turn our attention to educating everybody about what it's going to look like. I didn't mean to cut you off, Beth.
Yeah, no, it's just, I was going to say, I know it's still going to be difficult for families with scheduling. I get it's a nightmare, but I think that getting them in on any level is, the ones that are comfortable with it is the best option, at least for now.
Yes. Okay, we've done the yeoman's work tonight. I appreciate everyone's willingness to be part of this effort. Certainly the committee, all of your efforts throughout this has been invaluable. I think we've been working well as a team and navigating this. Certainly to Gordon for all your work. I know the hours you put into this and your heart and soul, and Pam as well, and Kathy in the office. And the whole leadership team and the staff. I know we continue to thank people, but this is a large task that we continue to go through, and I'm amazed as we go on how we're all meeting the challenge in terms of all of you. So I just thank you for that.
Kathy's been writing for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, I know.
She's worked the hardest tonight, I think. Yes. Okay, so with that, I believe our business for the evening is done. We do have a meeting scheduled for next Monday. We'll have more updates then. And as I said, community can look for that video, certainly with the assistance of Mr. Mackey in the near future. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Bill.
I'll second.
Second by Beth. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carries 5-0. Good night, all. Thank you so much.
Good night.
See ya.